very interesting way, you know. Obviously, we got this one house in Kent, which is kind of ready. I mean, it's ready, not kind of, it's ready. But then I don't know, man. I don't know what to attribute it to. It just ended up with so many voids. So we have about, I think, 20 or 21 rooms to fill,
Mm.
and not counting some 2 month notices which have been given for the upper month. So
Okay.
while I'm setting this house and then realizing, hold on, we've got like 20 rooms to fill. And one of our most costly houses, which is in Romford, is coming fully empty end of this month. Then this house in Kent, I've, based on what I have observed, the demand has not been great. So the last few days of last week have been very, very like distressing. It took me time to kind of recollect my mind because it's like, oh my God, these two houses can literally drive us down to zero. And
Mm-hmm.
we have one house which is half empty. We had to spend a bunch of money for bed bug treatment and all sorts of stuff. We've got another house which one room is empty because they're waiting HMO inspection. Another room needs to be retenanted. So, you kind of celebrate it and realize, oh my God, what's going on? Actually, things are not looking very great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then there is like two houses which Ralph is negotiating that we're trying to get, and then you draw the bottom line on your money, and it's like, oh my God, actually, can I even pull this off?
Mm.
Because like from all the money we're generating, a big bunch of them might go to having to supplement house rents, and then we're trying to get these new houses, and then this house in Kent, it's taking us time. We've only kind of have one room secured, and just demand is feeling like it's not been great.
Mm.
And it's like, oh my God, what do I do? It's actually very heated time. So I've been spending just a lot of time in just prayer and meditation to kind of reset my mind and to activate my superpowers to start making progress in that regard.
Powerful.
Because you're celebrating, and then the next day it dawns on you that this thing is actually quite real
Mm.
and quite serious.
Mm.
Because I've dealt with maybe 7, 8, 9 voids, but now 20. It's like, oh my God, where do you even begin? And that coupled with just the experience of the market not being as great as sometimes before, even to the length of some of these rooms were very popular rooms, and
Mm-hmm.
now they don't seem to be so popular.
Mm-hmm.
Has
Mm-hmm.
been very, very tough time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was even going to add as a question, maybe it's even better to cover this one at the end, is how do I even now manage the money that I have? Because I'm realizing that, hold on, I'm reaching a tipping point where now the balance is being affected, and I'm having to now think a few turns ahead of, how am I going to handle all this? How am I going to deal with all this, etc., etc. So that's been my journey this month so far,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So,
and I thank God we've started feeling them. I think yesterday we had 2 rooms in the house in Luton where we had the bedbug issue. We've got 2 rooms confirmed. So the two remaining out of the four, we filled them up in one day. We had we're doing a whole bunch of viewings, more inquiries. So, putting my work, and it is truly working, but it just was awakening to new realities because now you're journeying to your 1 million of revenue, but encounter a big obstacle that can slap you back many, many steps back.
100%.
And that's been kind of the big challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from this, another win is, with Mikhail, we've been looking at projects, narrowing down more our brief calculations, details. We've assessed some projects which are not great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've been reaching out to people. We haven't gotten anything like amazing thus far. Quite a few, maybe 2/3 of the people did not reply.
Okay.
Some replied but have not gotten back to us. But then I had very interesting kind of situation on the back of what I was praying before, which I mentioned, where the Holy Spirit told me to come through people. So I was praying, and I remembered one guy whose name is William. He works in he's a director in like a big property company. And how I know him, which is the amazing part, is like many years ago, that's before 2017, when I was doing kind of maintenance and just handyman stuff all around. I did job for one lady who was a tenant of somebody, and this lady left the property where I did the work, and then she had her own place, so she called me to do works there. So I think eventually she got engaged with William, and she kept calling me to do works in their house. And we're talking about hanger painting here, hanger painting there, 10 pounds this, 20 pounds that. And just along the line, I think even him had to message me to do some bits and pieces. And then just from conversation to conversation of how things are changing and mentioning what I do, we've kind of kept this distant connection. And then it just came to me, why don't you reach out to him and tell him what we're doing? So I reached out to him. He didn't reply for a few days, but then he replied, hi, Atanas, how is it going? And I said, well, look, I know you're a seasoned, person in property. I wanted to ask for something from you just to see your thoughts. He said, yes, I'll be happy to help. And then I explained to him, this is our brief, this is what we're looking to do. And the guy's like, actually, yeah, we can help. We can actually help you to do that. And he said, I'm back on the 12th in the afternoon. Just send me a follow-up email when I'm in London, and we'll see how the team can assist you. So that was a big blessing, because it's a connection that goes back from, literally serving in people's houses, fixing bits and pieces for 50 pounds, 100 pounds, to a potential, connection and opportunity that can actually bring project in millions. And for me, that's the amazing thing, because, as you don't despise the small beginnings and you focus on people, God can use and navigate them further down the line in ways that you didn't expect.
Amen.
So that for me is a big blessing and big realization. So looking forward to see what we can produce on the back of that and keep pressing in that direction also. So those have been the main updates from my end.
Thank you for the updates. And the second one is a major win, because as you were sharing, what was in my mind was, like, I'll put it simply, where else is it going to come from? Like, you made this statement, okay, it's amazing to see how serving in people's houses can turn to potential £1 million deals. But again, the thought in my head is, where else is it going to come from? And when I say where else is it going to come from, I say where else is it going to come from because a lot of the time we don't realize it's so deep, because I've been sharing this throughout the whole of last week, and potentially it might end up being the crux of the energy that I'm putting out this week. God does not ask us to produce trees. God only asks us to sow seeds. The Bible says in the New Testament, one plants, another waters, but God brings the increase. Scientifically, like what I shared last week in the live on Wednesday, is God has never asked us to turn a caterpillar into a butterfly. Imagine having to do the microscopic work of opening up a caterpillar, turning a caterpillar into a cocoon, then turning that caterpillar, whilst it's in a cocoon, into a butterfly, and then we've never been asked to create butterflies, but we are asked to pay attention to the process of transformation of how a caterpillar goes from being a caterpillar to being a butterfly. And the reason I say that is because sometimes we lose sight of the important things. We don't realize that some of the things we have with us right now are the most important things. For the caterpillar, the key ingredients to become a butterfly are literally within that caterpillar. And I didn't plan to speak about this, but maybe I'll share on this in the session. So it's great to hear about the wins, Atanas. It's great to hear what you've been working on. It's great to hear the developments. And at the end, if you want to, we can cover the how to manage the money, how to maneuver. But I think even just from hearing what you shared about where you're at, the updates, and also the current wins, today's session is right on time. Just like our session last month, speaking about attracting the right talent, like this session I think is going to be super key in terms of where you're at and where you're going as well. And I'm mindful that we're literally coming to one of your penultimate sessions on the roundtable. So I want you to utilize this session to the best of your ability. I'm even attempting to jam pack stuff in this session to make sure that if you're not in the process of renewing, you're definitely in the process of having everything you need in order to succeed going forward. So yeah, we're going to jump in. All right, champ, I'm going to jump onto the board. And with that, we are going to jump right in. Okay, cool, updated. That's perfect. So I think we're super good. I'll take the mouse just in case. Cool. All right, so for today's session, the title that we're going to work with is Messy middles make miracles. Okay, messy middles make miracles. And excuse me because I might have to move a few things throughout the session just because I got books and stuff all over the place. But messy middles make miracles. And it's interesting because as I even share the title, it has me thinking about so many times, so many places in scripture where we see what looks like, in my opinion, a messy middle. But most people don't think of this as a messy middle. People just think of it as, oh, that's life. I was speaking to one of our roundtable graduates recently, and it was yesterday, and I was sharing with him, I was saying to him, it's so funny that when we go through situations, we say things like, oh man, oh man, oh man. And what I said to him is, oh man is not Hebrew. Our man is not amen. Our man is not Abraham. Our man is no way, shape, or form the language God wants us to be speaking. But we still, oh man, we just made it through. Oh man, is there anything else we can do? Oh man, we speak from this language when God is trying to get us to speak another language. And this is why today's session, as we talk about messy middles and how they actually produce miracles, I want to encourage you, like first and foremost, knowing like some of the things you've shared in terms of what you're going through, what you're working on, how you want to get things in place, how you want to make sure that you have the resources managed appropriately. I also want you to understand that there's a reason why some of this stuff happens the way it happens. And I'm going to show you in this session. I didn't plan to do this, but I'm actually going to do this as well. I'm not only going to show you how things happen like this, but I'm also going to give you a few other things which I think are going to be helpful as well. All right, so now the plan is literally shifting as we speak to make sure that you get everything that you need. All right, so let's do this. Cool. All right, so let me just change this to get the board on, and then we'll go from there. Not that. We don't want to do the prize draw right now. There we go. All right, cool. Should be showing. All right, perfect. Okay, cool. Okay, perfect. All right, so I have to update the remote, but we're good with the pedals. All right, cool. All right, so today we're talking about messy middles. And specifically how they make miracles. Now, as we talk about this, what I'm going to do to make this make the most amount of sense, I'm going to start with definitions because I think definitions are going to help us the most. The first thing we're going to define is messy. Okay, so I'll start by asking you, here's a question. What does messy mean to you? When you hear messy, what comes to your mind? Let's start there.
I would say chaotic, disorderly, out of frame, I would say.
Okay, all right. So chaotic, disorderly, out of frame. Okay, I'm going to share something with you, Atanas, which you may have never heard before, but hopefully this will help you. Right? Messy is just uncomfortable. But the reason it's uncomfortable is that, like, this is what is important, is because it's unorganized. It's because it's typically unexpected. Okay, and as I'm going through this definition, I want you to think about this and understand, oh wow, it's true. Like, the reason why it's messy is not because it's wrong. It's not because it's not how it's supposed to be. It's actually just because it's uncomfortable. It's just because it's unexpected. It's just because it's unorganized. And as a result, it's unfamiliar to us. Okay? Does this definition make sense? Like, as you hear this definition, does it make sense? Like, oh, it's true. Like, messy is messy because it's uncomfortable. If I walk into a room and a room doesn't look organized in the way I think it should be organized, it's going to feel messy. If I walk into a room and I see things that are unexpected to what I expected, it's gonna feel messy. If I'm in a place and I see things in a way that's unfamiliar to me, it's gonna feel messy. But here's the funniest thing. Who defines messy? The person who defines messy is the person who, in this situation that we're talking about, is the person who in this predicament that we're talking about experiences a feeling of unorganized or unorganization. A person who feels this is not what I expected. A person who feels this is unfamiliar to me. Okay? Now, here's a question. I wasn't going to go here in the notes, but I'm going to ask this. The person who organized what we perceive as unorganized, is that same predicament messy to them? Let me know your thoughts on that.
No, and it's funny when you said houses, because with property you go in people's houses and sometimes you think, what are these people thinking? How do they even live here? But you see, they're very happy. They haven't got a care in the world.
You said it.
You very distressed.
Exactly. So the person who experiences this is messy is only the person who, as they go through this environment, says to themselves, this is not organized. Says to themselves, this is not what's expected. Who says to themselves, this is unfamiliar. And like you said, the actual person who lives there, the actual person who organized it, the person who made it to be expected, the person who knows this is extremely familiar, doesn't find it messy at all. They actually find it standard, or they find it heavenly, or they find it orderly. Why? Because a messy situation is only messy to the observer who's unfamiliar with it, who unrecognizes it, or who finds it unorganized. Okay, this is very important. Now, I'm going to ask another question because I think this is going to help, right? What if God was the organizer of what you and I are looking at and saying is messy? And again, it's not a question to answer, it's a question to think about. Just for a moment, like, what if God is the very person who's organized, who's expecting, and who's super familiar with the thing that you or I am calling messy? Think about that for a moment. Think about the situation where you're saying, we're facing the largest amount of voids. And as we go through this large amount of voids, I don't know what to do. Why? I'm going to tell you why. Firstly, because in your mind, that many voids is a lack of organization. You haven't organized your business to be prepared for that many voids. For you, that many voids is unexpected. Now, it shouldn't be unexpected. Why? Because if I have 785 rooms, I should understand mathematically that there's a potential to have 785 voids. There's a potential for that. Nobody says they wish it upon themselves. Nobody desires that. Nobody's interested in having that, but there's the potential for that. Samuel, what do you mean? Okay, let me explain it on the scene. We see Job go through a very meticulous, interesting situation. Job has everything, we could say. Samuel, what do you mean Job has everything? Well, the Bible says he was the richest man in the East, and we're talking about in chapter 1 of his story. Then we see Job lose everything and then end up with double. So what does that mean? That means what he perceived as everything in the first place was not everything in the first place. That's a good thing for us to understand. It's a good thing for us to establish in our minds. Hold on a minute. Is it possible for me to think I have everything and not to have half of what everything could really look like? Okay, but here's the point I'm trying to make on this before I even go into these other points. The essence point I want to make from this, for you to catch, for us to have, is just like Job had everything, it's because he had everything, he was able to lose everything. If you have 100 rooms, there is potential capacity to lose 100 rooms. If you have 758 rooms, there's potential capacity to lose 758 rooms. Someone with no rooms cannot lose any rooms. Hopefully this is making sense. Let's go deeper. Middle, okay? What is the definition of the middle? Listen to this definition. This is my definition. I've created it. You're not going to find this in Webster's dictionary, but I guarantee you, Webster's got no right to write a definition for middle because Webster's don't usually feel like they're in the middle. But let's go. The middle is not the end, although it often, and I think I can even underline that, feels like it. This is the start of my definition of the middle. You see, what if I told you, Atanas, when Job lost everything, he was just in the middle of his journey. But here's the thing, for you and I who read Job's journey, it didn't feel like for Job, as the person in the story, that when he lost everything, it was the middle of his story. It didn't feel like that. It felt like it's the end. It felt like it's the end, so much so that his wife said to him, why don't you just curse God and die? I want you to think about that. So a middle is not the end, although it often feels like it. But here's the interesting thing. A middle is also not the start. Because the start is necessary for contrast. What does that mean? That means if Job didn't have everything at the start of his story in our mind, when he lost everything, it wouldn't have been that deep. Imagine losing everything when you haven't had anything. Just think about that for a moment. Imagine having all the voids you have right now without ever having done anything before that. Imagine just starting with 50 voids, 100 voids. You see, if you started your property journey with 100 voids, guess what? You would be thinking right now that the few voids you have is nothing to think about. It doesn't mean anything. It's nothing. I've got less voids now than I started with. Now, you tell me, is what I'm saying making sense? Is this true or is this false?
No, it's true. It's very good definitions, actually. It's surprisingly, insightful definitions.
Imagine starting your entrepreneurial business journey in £785 million of debt.
That's terrible.
Imagine starting your journey like that. Starting. So here's the question. If someone starts their journey like that, what's their middle going to look like? Their middle is not going to look like, I'm in 20 million debt. Like I want to jump off a cliff. No, it's impossible. Why? Because although the middle is not the start, it can't be the start because the start is needed for contrast. This is what we have to remember. This is what we have to think about. This is what we have to keep in mind. Oh, so the reason why I think this many voids is large is because it's not independent. It's in contrast with where I started my journey, with no voids and no rooms. Having no rooms to having more rooms, and then some of those rooms are actually void. Okay, it's the contrast that makes me feel like I'm in the middle. But I know it's not the end, even though it feels like the end. It feels like this is going to take me out. It feels like this is the end without a doubt, but you're in the middle. And it's messy middles that make contrast. What this means is if the middle is not the end, although it often feels like it, and the middle is not the start because the start is needed for contrast, that means wherever you are is the middle. Because there is nowhere else for it to sit. There we go. I used to spell, now I just think about it. This is why it's the middle. It's the middle because there's nowhere else for it to sit. And guess what? We can ask Job. Someone who had everything went from having everything to losing everything, and the end of his story is he ends up with double of what he had. I want us to think about this and start to realize, wow, so Samuel, there's times where I felt like, oh man, I just made it through. Oh man, God just came through. Oh man. Guys, look, let me share this because I think this is going to be game changing for you. This is one of the revelations God gave me that allowed me to understand this definition of middle, this definition of messy, and also where we're going in a moment with the definition of miracle. God helped me realize that every single time in my life that I felt that I just made it through, let's say police had stopped me and they're like, listen, we're taking you away. And I pray like, Father God, please, I know I haven't been doing your thing, but I'll become a Christian. I'll be saved. I'll do the right thing if you get me through this. And then God gets you through. Then you're walking with the Lord wholeheartedly doing your thing. And you're in a relationship and you're about to get married and you're praying like, Lord, look, I just pray if this is the right person, make it happen. If it's not the right person, Lord, lead me to the right person. Just cause these doors to close if this is not for me. And then guess what happens? Yo, the doors close. You end up walking on a new path, meeting someone else. Business and finances. You're praying, Lord, listen, just create a way, please. I'm fed up of being the underdog. I'm fed up of hustling and bustling. I'm fed up of striving. You said in the book of Psalms, Psalm 18, I believe it's verse 43, you said you've delivered us from the striving of the people. Father God, deliver me from striving. I just want to be free. And you pray, okay? And as you make these prayers, God comes through. And after a while, let me tell you what starts happening. After a while, you start saying to yourself, God just comes through, man. God just comes through. Like, even if I'm not focused, even if I'm not doing the right thing, even if I'm not in the right place, God just seems to come through. Let me see if I can get this one and just be sure and accurate so I'm not making mistake paraphrases. Psalm 18, verse 43. Did I say 43 or 42? I think I said 42. Psalm 18:43, thou hast delivered me from the strivings of the people. Thou hast made me the head of the heathen. A people whom I have not known shall serve me. Psalm 18:43. So we're living in this world where a lot of the time we feel like God just came through. This is what I want to share with you, to impart with you on how God revealed to me what I'm sharing with you about messy middles make miracles. We live a life saying to ourselves, God just came through. God just came through. God just came through. Let me tell you why we live like that. We live like that because we believe, not God believes, we believe that we're in a mess. We believe we're in a mess because we go through situations which are uncomfortable for us, because we go through situations which are unorganized to us, and we go through situations which are unexpected to us and unfamiliar for us. Let me ask you this question, all right? Atanas, let me know. Is there any situation you've ever been in your life, known or unknown, so I'm speaking to your future as well, that's uncomfortable for God?
No, it's not possible.
Okay, great. I love that. You said it's not possible. Let me go deeper. Atanas, is there any situation in your life, known or unknown, so I'm speaking into your future again, that's unorganized in the sight of God?
No.
No. Because the Bible says that the whole world is held together by his words.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible said he is the inception of all things, which means there can't be anything which is unorganized in the sight of God, right? Let me ask this question. Is there anything that's going to happen to you in the future, anything that's happened to you in the past that's unexpected to God? What do you think?
No, again, it's mathematically impossible.
Mathematically impossible. I agree with you. So let's go to the last one. Atanas, do you believe there's anything in your future, in your past, in your present, that when it occurs is going to be unfamiliar to God? Oh, I haven't seen that before.
No.
It's not possible. This is the reason why although we may go through situations and say, oh man, God desires us to go through situations saying amen. Because as we go through those situations, yes, they may be messy to us, they may be unfamiliar to us, they may be unorganized to us, they may be unexpected to us. And as a result, they may all be uncomfortable to us, but they're not uncomfortable to God. They're not unexpected to God. They're not unfamiliar to God. They're not unorganized to God. This is what we've got to realize. We go through situations to us which we're in the middle of. When Job lost everything, he felt he was in the middle of a crisis. But here's the funniest thing. That wasn't the middle of his story in the sight of God. Because God is the Alpha and the Omega. He's the beginning and the end. God is seeing all of this already. He's not finding any of this unexpectedly. He's not meeting any of this with a lack of familiarity, unfamiliarly. He's not meeting any of this and saying it's too organized or unorganized for him. This is what we have to realize. So let's define miracles before we wrap up with the definitions. Because hopefully just these definitions alone are helping you understand, yo, I've been looking at this thing all wrong. I've been looking at these voids all wrong. I've been looking at the lack of business all wrong. I've been looking at the lack of opportunity all wrong. I've actually need to shift around how I see this thing. I have to start to see the miracles God's given me in the middle, of what I perceive to be a mess. Because it's not unorganized to God. You know, I'm going to share this after this because this is I think important right now. I think it was last month or one of our recent sessions, you were talking about how, like, let me even go all the way back because I think that will serve us even better. From the beginning of the roundtable journey, you shared, not as a testimony, but just as sharing. I said to God, I'm looking for a mentor. I prayed to God asking for a mentor. I said to God, help me. God, show me how. And literally, you decided to attend my birthday event and was scholarshiped the opportunity to join the roundtable. You've now spent close to 12 months in this coaching, mentoring environment and have been developed and developing. Watching your business grow exponentially from an incremental partnership. Why is this important? It's important because God already knew. Let's go there. I did not plan to go here, but let's go here, right? Matthew chapter 6. This is something I've been teaching from in a lot of my live streams over the last couple of weeks. So it's in my mind. It's super fresh. But I'm just going to share this. Again, like I said, a lot of today's session, it seems, is not what was planned. But let's do what the Holy Ghost wants, because I think that's the most important thing you can ever do in life, right? Matthew chapter 6. I believe it's around verse 8. Let's see if I can pull it out, right? Matthew chapter 6. Jesus is teaching his disciples how to pray. He says, take heed that you do not do your alms before men, etc. Right? Now watch this. He says, but when you pray, verse 7, use not vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think they will be heard for their much speaking. Oh man. Verse 8. Be not ye therefore like unto them, for your Father knoweth what things you have need of before ye ask him. Matthew chapter 6, verse 8. What am I sharing with you? What am I trying to reveal to you through giving you this before I even define the word miracle? I'm trying to help you understand that we're serving a God who knows. Like, yes, this is business mentoring. Yes, this is business coaching. Some people might be like, Samuel, you're doing too much Bible today. Listen, here's the reality. Unless the Lord builds the house, those of us, let's not make it external. Let's turn it internal. Those of us who labor are laboring in vain, unless he's building the house. So the question is, how does he build his house? That's what the round table is about. The round table is about creating an environment where people can learn through coaching, training, and systemized theology, if you want to put it that way, systemized teaching, how God desires your business to prosper. How God desires your business to 10x, 20x, 30x, depending on where you are in your spectrum. That's what the round table's for. That's what the next level is about. The next level is about how you go from being a wage slave to being on a different page, using biblical, systematic theology for entrepreneurship and enterprise. That's what this is. That's what all my coaching is, all my content. That's all it is. It's how to take the principles from the most powerful book and the most powerful being that we have ever known and allow them to be extrapolated and implemented into our lives so those things can be shown. That's all it is. And the reason why this is so important is because we live lives which we think are messy. We live in points where we feel like we're in the middle, but the reality is that's what makes a miracle. The messy that we see as messy, unorganized, unexpected, interrupted, uncomfortable, is not unorganized, is not unexpected, is not it's none of that to God. Which is why we have to be on the right page. Because guess what's going to happen otherwise? We're going to show up with lack of belief, called doubt, instead of showing up with real belief, called faith, in order to navigate throughout our business space. And that's not going to serve us. It's definitely not going to serve us when we have business partners who aren't steering the ship in terms of faith. It's definitely not going to serve us when we ourselves don't have the belief to make things happen. # Gideon. I can't be a mighty man of valor. Oh, but the angel who coached him said, yes, you can. Let's do this. Let's work together. Just like Moses. God, I can't go and speak to Pharaoh and make such a bold declaration. Okay, but God says, I'm going to coach you. Take Aaron and let him be your mouthpiece. You see, it doesn't matter who we're talking about throughout the Bible. There are messy middles, which are always, by the grace of God, introduced to miracles. Now, let's talk about this because miracles are powerful. Miracles, in my definition, are workings because they work without, okay, they're workings because they work. And you see, you have to understand this because if you don't understand this, you think a miracle is magic. A miracle is not magic. Let me start there. A miracle is not magic. Don't be fooled into believing if you go to a church that teaches this, that miracles are magic. Miracles are not God's version of magic because they both begin with M, right? Miracles are not magic. Let me explain this to you. Miracles are workings without words for how they work. That does not mean that they do not work. That does not mean that there's not a way that they worked. You see, when the woman had the issue of blood, and she said, if I can just touch the hem of his garment, I'll be made whole. And she touched the hem of his garment, and she was made whole. Jesus said, who touched me? I feel virtue has left me. Now, here's the thing. If Jesus never spoke, guess what we'd think? We'd think a miracle was magic. Samuel, what's the difference between miracles and magic? Magic has no explanation. The explanation, we know, is demonic. So they want to hide the explanation, so there's no explanation when it's magic. When it's a miracle, there is an explanation. The only problem is most people don't ever go and get the explanation. They don't ever find the explanation. They don't study the explanation because they're so fixated on studying the miracle. But if you look at this woman with the issue of blood, she said, if I could just touch the hem of his garment, I'll be made whole. That would be a miracle. Why? Because she spent over a decade having this issue of blood. She touched the hem of his garment. She was made whole. That's a miracle. But the question is, how does it work? Well, let's go find some words to discover how it works. We studied Jesus, and Jesus said, who touched me? And as you go through the comparative verses in the Gospels, you find that he said virtue had left his body. So what does that mean? How does a miracle of an issue of blood become solved? It can become solved through means of the impartation of virtue. Impartation of virtue. That can be done knowingly through means, hey, laying on of hands, which the New Testament talks about, or without necessarily knowing through means of a point of contact, which the Old Testament talks about. So miracles work. Most people just don't figure out how they work. That's my job. Now, I don't know about you, but if I was you, I'd say to myself, that's my job. According to Proverbs 25,
That's my job.
let's go. I'm going to tell you this, Atas, right? When I help people to 5x, 10x, 2x, 6x, 12x their business, people are like, how come Samuel just knows how to do this? I'm going to tell you how I just know how to do this, because I study how miracles work and not just the miracles. The fact that we start all of our sessions with wins isn't because I want to study wins. No, it's because I've been studying how miracles work so long that now I work miracles and people are just marveled at the miraculous. Rather than realizing, hold on a minute, like I can learn how to work miracles too. This is what the round table is about. It's teaching you, it's giving you the skill set in delegation, the skill set in automation, the skill set in communication, the skill set in systemization, the skill set through means of your North Star, the skill set through means of the business builder modules, understanding curriculum, content, understanding character. It's giving you the key components for you to be a miracle worker in your industry, if you desire to be. Let me show you why I desired and decided a long time ago to start studying how miracles work. Proverbs 25 verse 2, it says, "It is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter." I'm a king, so I search out a thing. I'm a king, so I search out a thing. Miracles are workings without words for their workings. Let me tell you a definition for miracles, right? My simple one-line definition for miracles. My simple one-line definition for miracles is the inexplainable explainable. The inexplainable explainable in my mind is my simple one sentence definition for miracles. Why? Samuel, why do you call miracles the inexplainable explainable? Because if you're talking to the person who didn't see your situation as unorganized, if you're talking to a person who didn't see your situation as unfamiliar, if you're talking to a person who didn't see your situation as unexpected, and as a result didn't find your situation uncomfortable, it would actually just be explainable. But because we're often talking to the person who finds their situation uncomfortable because they see it as unorganized, they see it as unexpected, they see it as unfamiliar, because you're talking to the person who sees their situation as messy, to them, it's the inexplainable. That's what a miracle is. It's the inexplainable explainable. This is why, I want you to think about this, Atanas, yeah? If I've spent the last 10 years with business owners who are struggling to make £10,000 a month, and all I've done for the last decade, whether it be first with myself and then with everyone else, discovered how to turn the £10,000 a month to as much as £1 million per month. Here's the question. Is the problems that these people, business owners, find uncomfortable, are the issues that make it uncomfortable because it's unexpected, because it's unorganized, because it's unfamiliar to them? Are these factors going to be issues to me? What's your answer to that? No.
No,
No. So
it's not.
what they perceive as a miracle, to me, is just work. Think about that. Because miracles are workings without words for how they work. So it's the inexplainable explainable. It's inexplainable to them, but it's explainable to me. It's inexplainable to them, but it's explainable to me. This is our God. This is how our God works. Our God is able to take situations which we find uncomfortable, we find unfamiliar, we find unorganized, and turn those situations into what we will call miracles, which is why messy middles make miracles. these messy middles make miracles because they provide three specific things. Now, before I do that, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna share with you the caterpillar thing, because I don't know if you've seen me teach this before, and I think it will be super helpful for you, right? So there is a specific journey of transformation, okay? And I'm gonna write this here, okay? Like I said, I didn't plan to share this, but when you were sharing at the start, I thought I should share this with you. I thought you deserve to learn this, the journey of transformation. Now, here's one thing I believe. I believe that God leaves us with evidence of all of the principles that he's given us, okay? So the first evidence is if you see the principle at work, you know, oh, that principle works. But God is consistently giving us principles and showing us how they work, right? And he shows us how they work in different ways. One of the first ways that I love he shows us is in nature, through natural order, okay? Now, Samuel, what do you mean? I'll give you a practical example. The Bible talks about the law of seed time and harvest. It says that we sow and in due time we reap, okay? So that's a law, it's a principle. But here's the funniest thing. We see that in nature. We see rabbits, for example. They reproduce 8 rabbits to 1. 2 rabbits come together, they end up having 8 offspring at one time. Okay, that's the law of seed time and harvest. We see that with babies, with children, with men and women. A man and woman come together, they have a son. A man and woman come together, they have a daughter. We see reproduction is the law of seed time and harvest. We see it with agriculture. You plant a seed, the seed gives you everything you need. You end up with a tree with multiple fruit, and those multiple fruit give you way more seeds to start creating more multiple roots. So we see the principles, the laws that God gives us show up again and again and again and again and again. Does this make sense?
Yes.
So one of the things that's a law that God shows us is the law of transformation. But most people have no idea about the law of transformation. Most people have never studied the law of transformation. And here's the funniest thing. Most people want to transform. Most people want to transform their finances. Most people want to transform a woman into their fiance. Most people want to transform from fat to fit. Most people want to transform, but very few people ever study transformation. Most people want a miracle, but very few people ever study miracles. I remember hearing this in 2005 in a training session I was listening to. The speaker said something profound. He said, if you want to be happy, make happiness a study. If you want to be wealthy, make wealth a study. If you want a miracle, he didn't say this, but this is the Samuel I Can Win version. If you want a miracle, maybe you should make miracles a study. If you want transformation, maybe you should make transformation something that you study. And I took that to heart in 2005, 21 years ago now. And that's all I've been doing for 21 years. Yes, people might have seen me at networking events. People might have seen me growing a property business. People might have seen me growing a family. People might have seen me growing my coaching business. People might have seen me traveling. People might have seen me do a whole bunch of stuff. But one thing I can tell you, a lot of people haven't seen me do, which is the one thing I have been doing the whole 21 years, is studying leadership, studying transformation, studying miracles, studying business, studying wealth, studying health to the highest of my degree. Samuel, how? How can you have been doing all of that and nobody saw you doing it? I'm going to show you how. Because I studied the law of transformation. What's the law of transformation? Watch this. We see it best with a caterpillar. The most beautiful animal that most people think about in their life is a butterfly. And what's interesting is every butterfly comes from a caterpillar. See, I want you to think about that for a moment. Every butterfly comes from a caterpillar. There is no butterfly that comes unless they first came from a caterpillar. I just want you to think about that for a moment, because most people never think about that. Most people never realize that one of the most beautiful animals, insects, things to observe in the world comes from a caterpillar. Now, why is this interesting? I'm going to tell you why it's interesting. Because there is a 3-step process, okay? 3 steps. Now, here's the good thing for you today. 3 is a number you can count. Here's another good thing for you today. 3 is a number you can remember. Here's an even better thing for you today. 3 is a number that can stay on one hand. This is how I've been able to help people transform their business, because I understand it only takes 3 steps. And I discovered these 3 steps for myself. I used these 3 steps on myself, and then I started to use these 3 steps on everybody else. 3 steps. It's only 3. That's a note I'd write down in my journal. It's only 3 steps. Here's step number 1. And most people don't know any of these steps, but I'm so glad you get the opportunity to learn this, right? Step number 1. The first thing a caterpillar must do. I could be nice and say does, right? But because you learned the law of transformation, you realize this isn't a casual could do. And as I often say, if you live life casually, you'll become a casualty. This is a must do. The first thing a caterpillar does is it forms a shell. We call it a cocoon. It doesn't matter what you call it. It forms a shell. Now, Samuel, why don't you call it a cocoon? I'm going to tell you why I don't call it a cocoon. Because in Matthew chapter 6, the same chapter we were reading earlier, when Jesus said, when he was teaching his disciples how to pray, when he was teaching his disciples how to have transformation in their day, he said to them, when you pray, go into your closet and shut the door. Oh, someone caught that. What was he telling them to do? He was teaching them to form a shell. Oh, you don't believe me. Let's go. 2 Kings chapter 4. Okay? You see, this is the issue we have. The issue we have is people want results without having to discover the work necessary for those results. 2 Kings chapter 4. I'm going to show you something. Okay? And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read all 7 verses. And then after I read all 7 verses, we're going to come back to this. Okay? Jesus taught his disciples, in order to have transformation through means of the pathway, the portal of prayer, the first thing they should do is go into a closet and shut the door. What is that? That's forming a shell. Let's go deeper. 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 1 to 7. Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha, saying, thy servant, my husband, is dead. And you knowest that thy servant did fear the Lord, and the creditor is come to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondmen. And Elisha said unto her, what shall I do for you? Tell me, what have you got in your house? And she said, your handmaid have not anything in the house, save a pot of oil. Then he said, go borrow vessels abroad of all thy neighbors, even empty vessels, borrow not a few. And look, the first thing to say about that is Dave Ramsey teaches debt is the devil. Elisha teaches debt is the door. Just saying. Let's keep going. Just saying. Because I remember in 2010, 2011, 2012, right now as I look to the right, I've got a book by Dave Ramsey and his daughter, Smart Money, Smart Kids. If I move my plaques behind there, I've got another Dave Ramsey book, The Total Money Makeover. That was the book I was studying religiously in 2010, running away from debt, until I discovered the Bible teaches how to use debt. And I was running away from my miracle. I was running away from my transformation because of a man, which is often what we're doing. But let's go deeper. Dave Ramsey teaches debt is death. Debt is of the devil. Elisha teaches debt is divine. Debt is the door. Let's go deeper. Verse 2 again. And Elisha said unto her, what have you got? What shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in thy house? And she said, thy handmaid have not anything in the house save a pot of oil. Verse 3. Then he said, go and borrow thee vessels abroad of all thy neighbors, empty vessels, borrow not a few. Watch this. And when thou art come into verse 4. And when thou art come in, thou shalt shut the door upon thee and upon thy sons, and shalt pour out into all those vessels, and thou shalt set aside that which is full. So she went from him and shut the door upon her and upon her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured out. She went and borrowed vessels, but it doesn't tell you about her going to borrow vessels. The first thing it tells you about her actual activity is she shut the door. Why? Because the key to transformation is being in the right room and shutting the door to everything else. Now, why do you need to shut the door? I'm going to tell you why. Because there's voices of dissent. There's voices who remember you how you used to be. And although they're telling you, Atanas, you're a great caterpillar. Samuel, you're the greatest caterpillar I've ever known. What they don't understand is no matter how much you promote my caterpillarship, it will never allow me to transform into my butterfly hood. This is the problem. Stinking thinking. Small-minded thinking. This is the reason why I encouraged Reginald to get his business partner into the room. Why? So that the voice he hears outside of the room when he opens the door is the same voice he hears inside of the room when he shuts the door. This is what transformed the disciples. Those that were able to go into their closet and shut the door and start to hear a voice in the room, the quiet place, the Holy of Holies, hear a voice that resonated with the same voice they'd hear outside. But you can't do that if you haven't shut the door enough. You can't do that if you haven't heard the voice enough. You can't do that if you haven't received what you receive inside the room enough to be able to recognize a different voice when you're outside of the room. Jesus said it better than I can say. He said, my sheep know my voice and another's they will not follow. Why? Because the sheep have spent enough time in the room, in the closet, with the door closed, so that when they're outside, they recognize that's the master speaking. Many of us haven't done that. This is why this is key. This is why this is crucial. So the first thing that a caterpillar does is it forms a shell. Now, I would love to go into the deep science of the next stage, but I don't have the time. And I literally, my favorite part of teaching this is actually the deep science. But again, we don't have the time. The next thing the caterpillar does after it forms a shell is it does something magnificent that most people don't want to do, but it fragments itself. It fragments itself. It literally, in simple words, pulls itself apart. It literally pulls itself apart. Now, inside of this part, there's a whole miracle working stage, which I usually teach people. Okay, this is the deep science of what's actually going on. But again, we don't have time for that. But the first thing is it forms a shell. The second thing is it fragments itself. Okay, this is again, like I said, this is the part that excites me the most about the caterpillar. But when the caterpillar's inside of the shell, okay, let me say a few things that I usually say, right? Because they're actually helpful and it's easy for me to just gloss over them. Nobody can put the caterpillar inside of the shell. Jesus never put the disciples inside of the closet. Elisha never put the widow inside of the room. Does it, Atanas, just on a basic level, because I'm taking it all the way to ground zero, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in order for you or I to ever transform, we always have to be the initial catalyst of the transformation. Does that make sense? Because a lot of people want to be transformed, but they want someone else to put them into the shell. They want someone else to put them into a room. They want someone else to put them into the closet. It can't happen. It's not part of the process of transformation. The forming a shell is done by the caterpillar. Now, here's the thing that's beautiful. When the caterpillar forms a shell, the second stage, it starts to fragment itself. It tears off of itself everything that's not that's not profitable, everything that's not potential, everything that's not purposeful for where it's going. It gets rid of it. If the part of its body was not for being aerodynamic, it throws it away. If a part of its body was not going to help it to grow a wing, the caterpillar in the shell fragments itself. It tears off every single piece and component of it that's not profitable, that's not palatable, and that's not purposeful for moving forward to the agenda it has in transformation. The caterpillar does it. And just like forming a shell, guess who fragments the caterpillar? The caterpillar fragments itself. See, too many times, we're waiting for Elisha to pour the oil. Too many times, we're waiting for Elisha to put us in the room. Instead of realizing, I got access to the room. So my job is to stay in the room. And if I stay in the room, I'm going to be able to do all the things necessary to do, which will allow me to stay in the room perpetually. I don't need to recreate a room. I don't need to find another room. I don't need to, like, let me tell you from a coaching perspective. Sometimes I have coaching clients. They come experience what we're doing in the round table, right? Because you know Reginald, let me use Reginald as an example, right? Reginald, a number of years ago, he joined the next level. He was like, Samuel, this coaching is different. This is like some of the best coaching I've ever had in my life, right? I said, thank you, bro. After he finished the roundtable, he joined a course, okay? A course delivered by other people. Wasn't even property related. And he calls me one day and he says, Samuel, he says, listen, bro. He says, I need to get back in the room. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, this course I'm on, it's not even property related. He's like, but when it hits 9 p.m., the coach is gone. He's like, that's not the energy. He said, that's not the energy. That's not the energy I need. He said, I need that next level energy. I need the energy that I know I get in that room. And I just said to him, bro, it's just because it's a different room. It's a different room. These people are watching the clock. And maybe they're watching the clock because of how much you paid them. Now, I'm the complete opposite. I'm going to make you pay me more so I can watch the clock less. Instead of telling you, pay me less, and then watching the clock more. Because I understand transformation. Like, okay, let me help you. You see what I'm talking about, Atanas, right? You're laughing, so I'm going to break this down because I want you to see why someone would actually consciously make that decision. Think about this, Atanas. One of my colleagues, when I was on the inner circle with Dr. Myron Golden, Chris, I had a call with Chris. Chris was the actual person who encouraged me to get a vibe board, funnily enough, right? Chris said something to me in the call I had with him. He said, listen, he said, Samuel, he said, you do know when a caterpillar goes into its cocoon, there's no going back. Right, so let's think about that for a moment. If scientifically what I've said to you is the truth, if a caterpillar forms a shell and then starts fragmenting itself, it starts pulling itself apart. I want you to take a second and think about this. It's pulled itself apart. What would happen if the cocoon says, time's up, I'm closing up today? That caterpillar is guaranteed to die. Because the caterpillar has not been created to be able to survive outside of the cocoon until the fragmentation process is completed. This is why I had to create all of my coaching endeavors in a way where I'm not watching the clock to get my clients in and out. I'm not trying to get as many in as quick as possible and as many out. No, I couldn't care about how many come in. Why? Because we're dealing with true and real transformative transformation. So I need to tell you to pay more so I can watch the clock less. And you need to say, I'm willing to pay more because I know he's going to watch the clock less. And he's going to make sure that the cocoon stays around me until I've finished and completed my process of transformation. That's the difference. And now you can see Reginald jumped back in, joined Roundtable, finished the whole year of Roundtable. After finishing a year of Roundtable, I think he finished his year when you joined. So he finished the year of Roundtable, jumped onto Marketplace Mastery. Whilst he's on Marketplace Mastery with Ryan, they're now speaking to me this week about stepping into the Roundtable for his second time, Ryan's first time. Why? Because he understands now, I want to be in the cocoon. He understands now, it's a messy middle for me, but I'm working with someone who knows how to turn this into a miracle for me. And this is why I want us to understand. Shut the door, Jesus said, form a shell. Go into thy house and close the door, Elisha said, form a shell. You have to form a shell. Then he fragments itself. And then after it fragments itself, it does the beautiful thing of becoming its future self. And this is what we will see. The butterfly. We will see the butterfly and say, oh, how beautiful is that butterfly? But we don't realize the work the butterfly went through to have the transformation. So Samuel, why are you sharing this? What are you saying? This is what I'm saying. I'm saying, Atanas, any time in your life you desire transformation, you desire relational transformation, you desire health transformation, you desire wealth transformation, Atanas, you are, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, my people, you are going to follow these 3 stages if you are going to transform. The first part of the transformation is you are going to have to form a shell, some form of a shell. It might be getting into a mastermind. It might be becoming part of a training program. It might be getting a mentor, getting a coach, the things you've prayed for. It might be that. But you're going to have to form a shell. Then you're going to have to fragment yourself. You're going to have to disband your old beliefs that do not serve you and take on new beliefs that now serve you. I remember in our last session, Atanas was saying about how you shared how, you said, when I started the roundtable, I used to have these thoughts like my business partner, Eddie. Why this? Why that? Why this? Why that? Now I've come to closing of the first year of the roundtable. I now see my beliefs and thoughts are more like my other business partner, Ralph. Here's the question. Who's more successful in business so far? Ralph or Eddie?
Ralph, yeah. Ralph.
Okay, so I already know the answer to that, right? But here's the next question. How do you become the person who now has beliefs that Ralph needs to catch up with? It's by going deeper in the experience that got you the ability to transform into the beliefs and catch up with Ralph's beliefs.
Yeah.
You have to think about this for yourself. Why? Because you're going through a process of transformation, and transformation only works with these three ways. First, you form a shell. Then you fragment yourself. What was the fragmentation of your beliefs? It was going through the roundtable and realizing, yo, this stuff me and Eddie are talking about, which we think are valuable, is actually not valuable. The more valuable thing is this stuff, which I should be talking about with Ralph. Fragmenting yourself, disbanding old beliefs. Like I said, I don't have the time to go through the deep science. If I did, you'd see even more connections. But that's how you then become your future self. That's how you then see, oh, I know who I'm supposed to be. I know what I'm supposed to do. Now I know how to get through. And then you get through. So as we talk about messy middles making miracles, the first thing I want you to understand is our definitions. Our definition of the middle is that it's not the end, even though it feels like it. It's not the start, because we need something to contrast where we are at. So as a result, it's the middle because there is nowhere else for it to sit. We define messy as being uncomfortable, but only because it's unorganized, it's unfamiliar, and it's unexpected to us. That doesn't mean it's unorganized, unexpected, and unfamiliar to God, and thus doesn't mean it's uncomfortable to God. And we define miracles as workings without words for their workings. So as a result, they are what I call the inexplainable explainable. Now, why is this important? It's important because these messy middles have miracles because they provide certain things. Now, we've already read 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 1 to 7. I'm going to read it one more time, and I'm going to share with you the 3 things it has, and then we'll jump into the homework. Let's go. 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 1 to 7 again. Now they cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha, saying, your servant my husband is dead, and you knowest that your servant did fear the Lord. And the creditor is come unto him, and the creditor is come to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondmen. And Elisha said unto her, what shall I do for thee? Tell me, what have thou in thy house? And she said, thine handmaid has not anything in the house, save a pot of oil. Then he said, go, borrow vessels abroad of all your neighbors. Empty vessels, borrow not a few. And when you are come in, thou shalt shut the door upon thee and upon thy sons, and shall pour out into all these vessels. And thou shalt set aside that which is full. So she went from him and shut the door upon her and upon her sons, who brought unto her, and she poured out. Verse 6, and it came to pass when the vessels were full, that she said unto her son, bring me yet a vessel. And he said unto her, there's not a vessel more. And the oil stayed. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, go, sell the oil, and pay thy debt, and live thou and thy children of the rest. You see, I've got a program, a coaching program. It's a course, a home study course. It's £2,000 that we sell, called Wealth Without Walls. In the Wealth Without Walls curriculum, we literally teach throughout 2 Kings 4, verse 1 to 7, and different components get brought up in that. But one of the components that comes to mind, which is in this passage so powerfully that God gives us as a structure and a system is that debt-free is not step one. You see, the problem many of us have is we listen to the Dave Ramseys of the world. We listen to the Mirror, the Daily Mirror, the Financial Times of the world, the secular ways of doing wealth. And as we follow these secular ways of doing wealth, they all teach us you need to be debt-free, okay? And as one of my coaches taught me once, debt-free is still broke. There's homeless people who are debt-free. Debt-free is still broke. Debt-free doesn't mean anything. It's not a badge of honor. But here's what Elisha, the coach, said to this widow about generating astronomical amounts of wealth. Samuel, how can you say astronomical amounts of wealth? That's a bold statement. Well, he told her to live off of what she makes. Her and her sons live off the rest for the rest of her life. That's astronomical amounts of wealth. Astronomical in the sense that she worked once and got paid for life. So why is this so important? This is why it's important. Because her coach told her after she generated revenue from borrowing to then pay off the debt. And most people in this world are trying to do this the other way around. They're trying to get out of debt and then generate wealth, which is close to an impossibility biblically. Which I assume, if it's close to an impossibility biblically, it's probably close to an impossibility mathematically. So let's jump into the 3 stages of how we see and experience messy middles becoming miracles. Now, the reason why these messy middles are able to make miracles is because they provide a few things. The first thing they provide is meaning within what looks and feels like to us mayhem. Okay? Meaning within mayhem. Okay? This widow has creditors calling. Okay? Like, let's put it here. She has creditors calling her. Okay? Here's my question. What does that mean? Doesn't mean anything. She has people calling her. It's like someone writing someone a letter. I have people writing me letters. What does that mean? Is my life going to change? Am I going to fall off a bridge? Am I going to fall off a cliff? Has my ability to generate wealth changed because an exterior circumstance has changed? The answer is no. So when you understand that messy middles make miracles, guess what you start to understand? You start to understand that there's meaning within what people see as mayhem. She's saying, creditors are calling, they're coming to take my children. Okay, but what does that mean? Now, what does it actually mean? For your wealth creation, what does it mean? For your moving forward, what does it mean? For your expectation, what does it mean? Let me tell you what it means. It means you're uncomfortable. Because to you, something unorganized is taking place. And to you, something in your future unfamiliar is going to happen. What's unfamiliar? Your children being taken and becoming bondservant. That would be unfamiliar for you. But guess what was also unfamiliar for her? Once she understood her messy middle could make a miracle. The other thing that was also unfamiliar for her was what actually happened. That she was able to activate something that generated wealth for her for the rest of her life. She was also unfamiliar to that. Samuel, how do you know she was unfamiliar for that? Because in verse 1, when she tells Elisha, my husband's died. And now the creditors are calling. She's telling you the lifestyle she had before. Hand-to-mouth lifestyle. Hand-to-mouth lifestyle. And Elisha gives her a mouth-to-hand lifestyle. These messy middles make miracles because they provide meaning within mayhem. This is what she got when she started to see what Elisha was going to do with her. He provided her meaning within the mayhem. Creditors are calling. So what? So what? What have you got? What can we work on? Let's get to work. Okay? But there's more. Not only do you get meaning in the mayhem or within the mayhem, you can also have which you should get from these messy middles, creating miracles, a means to produce momentum. That's 1M. A means to produce momentum. A means to produce momentum. What do you mean a means to produce momentum? The woman with the issue of blood that we spoke about earlier, what was truly of value to her? The true value for her was her ability to go and meet Jesus. All her life, dealing with these issues of blood, she said she's seen multiple physicians, never been healed. What was truly of value? Going to meet Jesus. Going to meet the physician that could do something all the other physicians couldn't do. Going to see someone who can take what for her had become unfamiliar, being free from the sickness, which for her has become unexpected. Spending so many years with the issue of blood, now no longer even expecting to be free from that. Going and finding someone who can take the issue of blood that she had organized into her life and making that unorganized. And saying, you know what? This lack of organization is not a lack of organization to Christ. This lack of familiarity is not a lack of familiarity to Christ. This uncomfortability you're experiencing can be removed with Christ. And as a result, what did he do? He changed her life. What was truly of value to her? It was going. It was getting the momentum to go. She'd seen so many other physicians. She could have said, you know, I've seen so many physicians, I'm done now. I'm not doing this anymore. She built up the momentum to go. This is why messy middles are so powerful to create miracles, because they give us the means to go and get momentum. If Job didn't have everything before he lost everything, would he be able to even recognize the momentum of having double of everything when it came? These are things to think about on our journey. As you're going through this process, think about it. Okay, we got voids. Okay, well, the only reason I recognize these voids is because there were time I had no rooms. The only time I recognize these voids is because there were time I had no voids. So if there was a time I had no voids, what does that mean about my future? Oh, we can do that again. That's achievable. That can even start to be set as my expectation. We've done this before. We can do this again. We can have double what we've had. Ask Job. Now, here's for me the most powerful part of how messy middles make miracles. Because not only do they give us meaning with mayhem, within the mayhem, not only do they give us means to produce momentum and create momentum, they also give us, and this is how I get to teach, they give us models for us to literally have lessons from our mistakes. You see, this woman with the issue of blood that we spoke about a moment ago, she went and saw this physician and that physician and this physician and that physician and this physician and that physician. And after all of those physicians and no one solved her problem, she then went to see Jesus. It was the mistakes she was making and learning from each time she saw the physician that kind of was like her GPS saying, oh, there's something different about him. The only reason I can recognize there's something different about him is because of all these other things, all these other people I tried before. So guess what I can do now? I can take a model to no longer make these mistakes. I can develop a model based on these mistakes, that the person I need is Christ. The person I need is like this and not like that. The person I need moves like this and doesn't move like that. Joseph saw the sharing of his gift took him through portals. He went from a pit to Potiphar's house. I believe that's with an F, but it's all good. To a prison. And the last portal that we see he ends up in is a palace. How did he do that? I'm going to tell you how he did that. The sharing of his gift was the model that he developed through his mistake. Now, I'm not one of those people that preach, oh, don't share your gift. Joseph made a mistake. No one should share their gift. No, I'm the opposite. I believe that it's because he shared his dream that he was able to learn from that experience and say, okay, now this is how I should share. Now this is how I should share. Now, let me tell you what happened with Joseph. He went from sharing his dream to teaching people what was happening in their dream. That's a model developed from the mistakes that was made. Okay, I know what I can do. I can take your dream and interpret it to you. That becomes super valuable to him at the end of his journey. Here's a question you have to ask yourself, which I believe Joseph asked himself. What can I not go back to? It's not the homework, but it's definitely something to think about for work. What can I not go back to? What can I not go back to? What can I not go back to? As we wrap up, let me just share this with you, Atanas, right? At the start of the session, you spoke about things becoming challenging, certain parts of the situation, etc., right? I want to share this with you because I think it's something that came to mind as you were speaking, and I thought, you know what, let me say this because it's going to be helpful for you. In the book of Genesis, we see a model that God shows us, and it's the reason why I have, I guess, one of my most well-known statements, and that statement is chaos follows creation. Now, people might be like, Samuel, where did you get that from? I'll tell you where. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In Genesis 1:1, something very powerful happens. The Bible says, in the beginning, God created. Let's go there and read it. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, right? And everybody's happy. Like, yeah, God created in the beginning. God created the heavens and the earth. That's what happened in the beginning. Okay. What's the first thing that happened next? Was it grass?
Chaos.
Thank you. Genesis 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And then the next thing that happened in Hebrew is called tohu vabohu. Okay? And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. The next thing that happened after God created was we see chaos. And this is why I tell people chaos follows creation. Why am I saying that to you? I'm saying that to you for several reasons. We started today's session, we asked about the winds, and you shared, listen, Samuel, this is what's happening, this is what's going on, this is what I'm going through, this is what I'm experiencing. And I wanted you to understand something. All you're experiencing is the same pattern every human being experiences. In the words of Jim Rohn, the next 10 years are going to be just like the last 10 years, opportunity mixed with difficulty. But here's the reality. What Jim Rohn was telling those business owners, those multimillionaires, when he shared that with them, is the very same thing God was telling all of his creation when he opened his words in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, and added verse 2 and said, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And verse 2 tells us, and the earth was void and without form, and darkness covered the deep. You see, what we understand is the first thing we see in any journey is going to be, by the grace of God, creation. We spoke about this earlier. Let me use this as an example. I want to get into my closet. I want to get into a room. I want to get into a coaching program. I want to get in creation. Okay, you create the idea in your mind. This is my level. This is my standard. This is what I'm going to be. You create that in your mind. But the next thing that shows up is not creation, it's chaos. These are the bills. These are the voids. This is what's stopping you. These are the obstacles. But here's the beautiful thing. Verse 2 doesn't end with the chaos. Verse 2 doesn't end with the chaos. Verse 2 ends with, my friend, the conversion. Samuel, what's the conversion? Let's read verse 2 and find out. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Verse 2, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Conversion, my friend, is the inspiration that leads to the transformation we need. Here's what most people do. Most people create, see chaos, disband their creation. Then they create something else, see chaos, disband their creation. And this becomes the cycle of most people's life. It's a chaos and creation cycle. Instead of what God actually intends it to be, which is a creation to chaos journey. And when you see the chaos, you do exactly what he told us to do in Genesis 1:26-28. He said, let's make man in our image. Let's make him abundant. Let's make him have dominion. How do we have dominion? This is how. He says, by being fruitful and multiplying. How do we do this? He says, be, do, have. In order to be what you decided to create, you must do what it takes to create, and then you have what you desire to have, the conversion. But what's the be, do, have? If we're going to have the conversion, because we want to become our creation, what do we have to do to overcome the chaos? Multiply, replenish, subdue. And this one is the one most people have no idea how to do. But this one is the one that's stopping most people like me and like you. Because of time, I'm going to wrap up. We're going to open it up. If you've got any questions, let me know what questions you have. And then we'll go into the homework. And then we'll cover the last topic we spoke about earlier on. I pray that was valuable for you as well, champ. Let's go.
Yeah, thank you, Samuel. I mean, so many things to go through. You know, that session was really probably one of the most packed, if not the most packed I've had, and just so insightful and practical. You know, I'm just looking at these, and it's like perfect kind of blueprint and roadmap for my journey and situation. And as I was listening, I'm just trying to soak as much as I could and just document also as much as I could. And you know, where where do I even start? I've written like 5 pages worth of things. Even when you said God doesn't ask us to produce trees, he only asks us to plant seeds in the beginning. It's been, you know, one of my kind of contemplations recently. And I think it's what, you know, Samuel Lee's book, Do the Possible, Let God Do the Impossible. I think it's exactly this. You know what? I cannot force people to come, but I'll do what I have to do in the spirit, in the field, to ensure that God knows how to bring the people. And they may not even come from the ways I expect them.
That's another powerful
but lesson. They will come. You know, and it's so amazing because this is literally what I've been going through my mind over the last few days as I've been meditating. And then what you said about the definition of messy, I've never thought about it this way, that we call it messy, but actually behind the messy, it's a deeper understanding, or a deeper reaction which we're experiencing to it because it's uncomfortable, unexpected, unorganized. And as a result, and it's very funny because it it has to do with everything. I remember I was dropping a friend of mine to the airport, and it just, you almost like people will give you this task, do this and do this and do this way and do that way. And I said, look, you're a bit hard to please. And the person, no, I'm just particular. And it's funny because it's exactly this. You're put in some situation when you feel uncomfortable and annoyed, but the people, for them, it's normal. But now you're having to experience some things which don't look normal to you. So that creates this sense of messiness and annoyance, and much more so with God, because again, nothing takes him by surprise. And
100%.
the word of God is true that with God all things are possible, and they're possible for you if you believe. That means you can deal with any situation. And just that definition was very, very just mind blowing and eye opening. What else? I'm going through my notes. Even miracles, that for me, you said, most people think miracles are magic. And I think it's kind of the general Christian understanding, sadly, which is kind of lack of mentorship, that we just hope things happen or expect things to happen anyhow. But, through the last few years of kind of my journey of greater spiritual growth and understanding, I've come to understand that, to miracles, there is a technology. If you apply the technology, you'll get the result. Just like there is technology that makes computers work, planes to fly, and everything. Same with miracles, and we can produce them. And I loved the way you share this, because it's something that I also firmly believe in. And sometimes people dismiss them just because they can't figure out how to do it. And maybe it didn't work for some people, they couldn't figure out how to do it, so now they've turned that topic into their enemy, or people who did it into their enemies. Whereas if you find the technology, you get it to happen. And I remember it was in one Q&A session, I'm not sure if it was a question of Katie or Reginald. It was something to do with people with wealth, and you said most people, they're saying, why does this guy have this, why does this guy have that, why does this guy have that, whereas you said it's not one of the questions we should ask. And I think again it was reference to Jim Rohn, and he said you should ask, how does this person have it, and how can I have it? Because again, it's a result of a technology that has been applied to
100%.
produce that result.
100%.
And that's what our focus should be, really, to obtain the wisdom that helps you to make the impossible possible in your own life.
Powerful.
And then same with the journey of transformation. To me, that was a big answer, where you said, if you want something, you have to make it your study. So, people want something, but they just end at want. It's just this want and this hope, which, people call hopeless hope. You're hoping, but it's not going to produce result, because you have to make it your study. And just like you said about the Lord said about going to your inner room, Elisha said, the woman took the oil, go and shut the door. And that scripture, which is it Proverbs 18, that says, through desire a man having separated himself seeketh an intermediate with all wisdom, which
Proverbs
I believe
18,
in one of the cash flow creation weeks, you said this is the formula to success.
Yeah,
to
Proverbs
wealth,
18
and
verse 1.
success in any endeavor.
100%.
Yeah, so we kind of just want things to happen, but how are they gonna happen? And it's very funny, because it reminds me of one statement which one man of God said, which really amazed me. He said, the reason why so many marriages fail is because before we allow people to drive, we took them on a course, we ensure they're licensed and taught how to drive. But since we allow anyone to marry anyhow, and they just make a mess of it. And he says, imagine if we allow people to just drive anyone, anywhere, anyhow, what is going to happen? There'll be mayhem on the roads.
Chaos.
So it's the same with this. If you're not studying something, how are you going to be successful in it?
That's so powerful.
Especially the higher you want to go, because what I've realized is many of us, we start with this hustle mentality, you want to make it happen, and you start seeing some results, but then you realize that the gravity that is trying to pull you back is too much because of your own limitations, and you realize that the sweat equity and stuff it's the equalizer at the beginning stages, but it's not the equalizer at the later stages. You know. So
Leverage.
that was a very, very big insight for me there.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
And then what else? Yeah, the amazing thing which you said there, you know, you saw yourself how in 1 year you've transitioned from the mindset of one person to the mindset of another person. And then you said if you want to go to the next level and go even further, how are you going to do it? You follow the same system. You just go for more coaching because, you know, you have to realize there are greater levels unless you want to stay on the same level of result, which is a problem because, again, complacency and entropy will start setting in at some point. So you have to keep going. You have to keep going for more. It never stops if you want your success to be continuous and consistent.
That's powerful. And the fact you used entropy, that's super powerful because it's true. It's like scientifically, you cannot stop that. Like it's going to destroy your garden. Like it's funny. Like
Yeah.
we've just moved house, and it was this morning. Robbie was looking at our front garden. We got a fairly large front garden. She was looking at the front garden. She said, "Look at the weeds." Like, and I said to her, like, you have to attack the weeds. You know, that is stage 2 of the journey of transformation. When the caterpillar is inside of the shell, is formed, it fragments itself. When you go into this new environment that you know is for you, you're gonna have to get rid of the things in that environment that you know are no longer for you. This is part of the journey. So
Yeah, and I, you know, because one of the men of God who really imparted my life, he always says this, you know, everything is waiting for you, but it's a different version of you. And if you don't ascribe to that version, it will keep waiting and you keep waiting, but it will never happen.
that's real.
You know, and for me, that personally has been kind of the driver to growth because you realize that you can be so much more, but you have to grow. And the key to being those things is growth. And like you said, it's conscious. And that's the beautiful part that nobody will force you to it. You have to make the first step. Even God won't. If He never force you to be saved, why is He going to force you
That's rich.
to grow? Because if you're saved, you still go to heaven. So it's a minor issue on the agenda compared to salvation. So in the same way, it's very, very critical to make that step personally. Otherwise, who's going to make it for you?
Add to that, what you just said is so rich. If God doesn't force you to be saved, why would He now force you in any of the other arenas? And it's powerful because one of the things I taught in Family Bible and Breakfast about 3.5 years ago is that God has called us to be pattern recognizers so that we can be pattern breakers. So many of us have patterns in our life we need to break, but because we don't recognize patterns, we can't break them. And what you just did there is you just shared a pattern. Like salvation, the spiritual door into our future, we're expected, just like the caterpillar, to form that shell ourselves, to do the work, to say yes ourselves. He doesn't force us. So why would He like, yeah, you got me with that today. Let's go.
Yeah. So, you know, we're hoping and expecting a miracle and whatnot, but, you know, you have to make a step just like the woman with the issue of blood. Jesus didn't say, I'm going to this lady's house today. She's on my agenda. And funny enough, she was not on his agenda. There was no Google Calendar slot for the woman with the issue of blood. And she actually interfered. Another guy's miracle whose child died.
Yep, yep. And that's and that just marries to the idea you said that you heard from that man of God, that everything you desire is waiting for you. She desired healing, but it's easy to sit at home and say, one day I will, one day if I, tomorrow. Like someone was saying it to me yesterday, tomorrow never comes because the moment tomorrow is here, tomorrow is today. So just as Jesus said, we need to get good, like it says in the New Testament, and make today the day of salvation. Today has to be the day that I say, I'm going to make the change. Today has to be the day that I say, I'm going to get into this room. Today has to be the day that I say, I'm going to do this thing. Today is the day of salvation. Today. It's not about tomorrow. Tomorrow is not promised. So it's powerful you saying that because she didn't say, oh, I'll book an appointment tomorrow, I'll be in the agenda, or I'll go and see him to see if he can put me in the agenda. She said, I must go, and if I touch the hem of his garment, I know I'll be made whole. Like, she created her agenda and he became a part of it. Like, imagine if we did that. Imagine if we created our agenda and £1 million in revenue became a part of it, rather than us waiting for £1 million in revenue to come to us. It's the game changer.
Yeah, and you're sorry, just wanna write
No,
this
you're good.
down.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah, it's amazing because again, and I think it's sometimes just the wrong understanding of sitting and hoping and waiting for things. But again, faith is about action, and you have to do your action for God to do His action. And I think what, even in this situation, like you said, what you said here about the pattern that the challenges they give you the meaning with the mayhem within the mayhem means to produce momentum, the model for mistakes. I was thinking of even in this I recognize another blessing because like 2 months ago, remember I would sweat the costs and like the very fact that why is this cost happening, man? Why is this happening? £50 here, £100 here. I'm telling you, now having to deal with those 20 rooms, literally, like just last week, okay, this room, bed bugs, mattress, bed frame, handyman, 2, 3. It's like, I have bigger issues. Think I can't spend my energy, just pay, just move these things. It's like, I would sit and think, oh my God, this is getting about to 1K. Oh my God, this is pushing a few hundred. But then it's like, look, I have bigger issues to deal with that are going to cost me multiple thousands. So I have to move through this quickly.
But do you see?
And I realize that even through this, God is, sorry.
No, I wanted you to flow. I was just going to say, but do you see that what you're now describing is what I shared last? The Genesis 1, verse 1 to 2. Chaos follows creation. You, months ago, were complaining about the chaos of this bill, that bill, £50 here, £50 there. Now you've subdued that in your mind. You've gone past that in your mind to a degree where now you can manage that chaos. Yes, okay, the money's going up, but you know what? Just pay. There's bigger things to focus on. That's not something that's going to consume my mind now. So now you've created a new level or standard for yourself. So guess what's going to happen with that new creation? New chaos. Wow, 20 rooms. What are we going to do? So the question for you is, now you've seen the model from your mistake, are you going to allow the 20 rooms to become the new, oh, there was a time where the £50 here, the £50 there. Then there was a time where the empty rooms here, the empty rooms there. Or are you going to take the model from the mistake before and say, no, this is just something I have to subdue. There's 20 rooms empty. I know what to do. We got work to do. There's going to be inspiration that leads to transformation that we need.
Yeah.
Let's get to work.
Yeah, and it's funny because, even through this, you can see God is doing deliverance of those funny mindset that I'll be like, oh man, okay, shower hose messed up or boiler messed up, and they're pissed off like, man, how can in one day 200-300 pounds of costs come up? Like, it's not acceptable. And this kind of messes your day. And just looking at the last few days, it's like, we've literally had to push thousands because, okay, you're setting up this new house, you're dealing with this bed bug issue, whatnot. Okay, boiler in this house. So but you realize there is much bigger things you need to deal with. So you're kind of liberated from these things. It's like, okay, just do it. And, and it's very funny because, again, speaking to Eddie about just the whole thing of cost saving, he's like, bro, I need to save to get married and stuff like this. And I'm like, bro, what are you telling me? Since January, it's at least 5K I've spent on every house, 5K every month, multiply it by month 5. And we've not stopped. But even then, looking back, I'm like, look, God, even this is a blessing because,
Amen.
I've been in times where, you're sweating about 50 pounds for food for the week or 400 pounds rent. And now it's like, man, these money are going, coming, and you look back and realize this thing with money, it's really a game, man. It's a type of a game, and it's very funny because Pastor Chris says for many years, he says, money is in the mind of the poor. And it just sounds so weird. But when you see all these things just moving and going around, it's like, man, this thing it's true, because there are levels of motion, and you have to stay focused and major on the majors and not allow yourself to be majoring on the minors.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There's levels of motion, and that's why you need to make sure that you use the process to create the momentum. That's why, because it's all movement, and the question is, are you moving towards or away from the, let's just use this loose, broad term of from the goal. If the goal is whatever it is, like let's say, again, let's go back to it. Let's say the goal is £1 million in revenue for the year. If the goal is whatever the goal is, the question is, everything is going to create movement, because everything is energy. Energy is neither created nor destroyed, it's only transferred. So everything is creating movement. Movement is a form of energy. Kinetic energy is moving energy. So if let's break down what we're saying to the science. Everything's going to create movement, which means everything's going to create energy. And what we really mean, because energy is not created nor destroyed, is everything's transferring energy. So if everything's transferring energy, everything's attempting to transfer movement, the question is, what kind of movement do we want? Well, we want movement only in the direction of the goal. So if the goal is, for example, in your case, £1 million in revenue per year from this portfolio, then that's what you're creating, which is going to be creating the chaos. So the chaos, like I shared this with Amanda a number of years ago in the roundtable, I'll share it with you. The big mistake people make is they think because chaos follows creation, that it's any kind of chaos that they're going to see. And what I shared with Amanda, which shifted her revenue rapidly, was the chaos that shows up is in correlation to the creation you're creating. So if you are thinking in £50, £100, £200 terms, but you're creating something in £1 million terms, you can be wiped out easily, because when the chaos shows up, it's not chaos at a £50 level, it's chaos at the £1 million level, because that's what you're creating. So that's what the chaos is there to stop you from. So imagine someone who's thinking in £50 increments dealing with £1 million chaos. That person could commit suicide. Because again, when we spoke about the definition of the middle, the reason for the beginning is for contrast. So if you're going to stay at your beginning, your contrast is always going to be massive and major. But if you're going to move from the beginning and say, no, I'm not at the beginning anymore. I'm not the person who had 1 room, 2 rooms, 4 houses, 5 houses. That's not me. The person I am is the person who I'm creating, who actually has a portfolio that generates over £1 million every single year. That person, what kind of chaos do I expect at that level? 20 rooms empty? That's nothing compared to where we're going. Let's get those rooms filled and move on. That's how you subdue. That's how you do the subdue part, the one part that people miss. Everyone loves the multiply part. Everyone loves the replenish their barns. Every month on the 1st, we replenish the bank account. Everyone loves that part. Every 3 months, we get new properties. We multiply our revenue. Everyone loves that part. What about the subdue part? There's empty rooms. We have to take control of that. We have to put people back in the rooms, which is again part of replenish, but it's the subdue. Subdue the mind and the mindsets of, oh, let's keep thinking at £500, £5,000, £10,000 a month. I remember having one of my clients in Wealth in Words. He joined Wealth in Words. One of the first things he said in one of his sessions, Brother Samuel, my goal is to make £20,000 a month. I was like, that's cool, that's easy, let's do that. Then I said, but let me share something with you, brother. I said, you do know when you go from where you're at now to £20,000 a month, you're going to have £20,000 a month problems.
Yeah, it's true.
And he literally like paused for a moment, because I think he realized he had never thought of that side of the coin. He thought the coin was double-sided, head and head. And I said, no. I'm happy to help you. I will show you. I will literally give you the roadmap to go from where you are in your business to £20,000 a month and beyond. And I gave him a roadmap in that session of how to generate over £20,000 in his business. 19,587 pounds. So a little bit lower than 20,000. But I literally gave him a roadmap how to generate close to £20,000 following something I showed him. And then obviously if he keeps doing what he's doing, he only has to make £500 and he's past 20,000. But I said to him, beware that you want to generate £20,000 a month, but £20,000 a month is going to come with £20,000 a month problems. And this is what we've got to realize. Like, there's nothing wrong with us creating what we're going to create. Just be aware of what we create is also going to create. It's going to create that chaos. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's a realization which I had, you know, because sometimes they'll say, people are money hungry. This guy is rich. Why is he trying to get more? But then you don't realize it's exactly this. I realize, look, when you get there, your problems are there. So you're trying to outpace your problems by getting more. And as you outpace them, here comes another one. So you can't keep going, because actually if you stop going, you go back.
100%. That's growth.
And you drown.
That's growth.
Yeah.
That's growth.
So I think in conclusion, the question which you said, it's something I was meditating as well, what you don't want to go back to, is exactly this. I was sitting and thinking, you know what, you can't go back to anywhere, because it's like you've already committed, you've jumped, you're in the middle of the ocean, so you don't have where to go back to. You just have to keep pressing on. That's and powerful. Go through it and move on.
That's powerful. What I would say to you, Atanas, is some of the things that we've been doing in the roundtable, I strongly believe if you pushed further, faster and harder in executing, would cover you a lot more right now in the position you're in. So, for example, right, and I'm saying this because I'm mindful, 2 months from now, we're not going to be here unless you're in the renewal position. So I need you to understand this. The delegation part. If you have staff, because we even spoke about it last month when we spoke about attracting talent, if you have staff in place from an admin perspective, or additionally from a tenant finding perspective, creating a database, building a database, customer engagement, just keeping relationships, building relationships, keeping people warm who have looked at other rooms, looked at rooms in the past, didn't get the room, but might still be interested. Like, if you create that system and have that system in your business, that could fill 20 rooms very quickly. Like, imagine if the second person who you would have taken on each of those rooms was kind of engaged softly over the last 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, 2 years. And now, okay, the room's coming empty. Well, the person who took the room's coming empty because they're moving on in some way, shape or form. How do we not know that the person who didn't get the room got another room and they're not trying to move on 12 months later, 24 months later? And if we were reaching out to them, hey, Dorothy, how are you doing? Yeah, 2 years ago, you mentioned that you was interested in this room. We know that obviously you weren't accepted. You took something else on. However, if something like that was to come up again in the future, would you like us to let you know? Yeah, of course. Oh, I've just got a promotion. Now I'm looking for something a bit bigger in the same area. I remember the room. It was a great room. Boom. So again, I'm not saying all 20 rooms will be let out like that, but I'm telling you, you'd be closer to 20.
Yeah.
So
I mean, 2 rooms is 10%. So
you said that. It's the maths. So this is how it works, Atanas. Like the delegation, the automation, the communication, the systemization. Like the DAX system is not just a system for us to know in our head. Oh, okay, that's good. I get it, right? Like, again, I will share this because I think this is important, right? Nobody gets into the roundtable in most cases without having done the 5-day cash flow creation week before, without having done a lot of the time the next level before. Most people have done the 5-day cash flow creation week as well as the next level. In your case, you've come straight into the roundtable, right? Without doing the 5-day challenge before. So the reason I'm saying that to you is because some of the mindsets you're shifting in this 12 months, which people have shifted prior to coming into this 12 months. So that may take a toll on how fast you're able to implement some of the stuff we're talking about in here. And that obviously has an effect in how fast you're able to see the results of some of those things. Now, obviously, over these 12 months, you've seen results, you've seen this works, you've seen how it works, and you've obviously.
The reason I'm saying that to you.
Sorry, okay, cool. And obviously, like, as a result, like, hopefully you can still hear me. Send me, just say a chat message, yes, so I know you can still hear me. All right, cool, perfect. So, yeah, so obviously, as a result, that has an impact. And it's not to say that, okay, as a result, like, this isn't going to work for you. Like, if it wasn't going to work, we wouldn't have invited you in. That wouldn't have made any sense to us at all. Okay, so it's not, okay, this isn't going to work. It's just more so me helping you understand that there's more in this room for you to utilize and manifest and make work for you based on you realizing what we're talking about, basically. That's what I'm synthesizing this into saying. Because some of the stuff we've discussed, some of the stuff that we're still working on, let me put it that way, if we get those things plugged in, like, they will make a massive difference in terms of where you're going, you know? So just think of it like that. Like, okay, how can I actually start plugging in some of this stuff that I've heard, I understand, I know, but I need to shift? Because the thing that we're talking about in terms of Eddie, okay, I used to think like this, now I'm thinking like this. Most of the people coming into the round table already have that mindset. Now, how do I know that? Well, they're dropping £55,000 to join a 12-month coaching program. So they're not thinking, oh, £50 is a lot for this. They're definitely not thinking, oh, a house needs painted, I'm gonna go paint it myself. They're not thinking like that. By the time people get into the round table, they're already thinking the way we all think right now. They start the journey with this mindset. This is why, as an example, I said to you with the Ralph thing, okay, now maybe you're seeing yourself thinking synonymously with Ralph, but how do you go beyond that? Well, the way you go beyond that is you get into a room which is prepared for people who think like Ralph to go to the next level. So this is why I'm saying to you, you have to prepare yourself in that way to be like, okay, cool, like, I got, like, and again, this is why I've encouraged you to get Eddie on the same page, because that will just be more fuel in terms of fire for you, where both of you are thinking at that newer level. It helps you propel to a whole new level, because you're going to realize, hold on a minute, there was a time Eddie was thinking like this. There was a time I was thinking like this. I no longer think like this. Now imagine a picture where now Eddie no longer thinks like this. So now you are going to ascend to a new level to bring him up again. And he's going to be like, yo, I see why you're ascending to this new level. Because it makes the difference. It's, again, law of seed time and harvest, law of leverage. Like, you said it better than I could say it. There was a time, bootstrapping at the start, where, it's hustle mentality. But after a while, what you realize is hustle mentality has a ceiling. Why? Because you're using your own muscles in order to make money. And there's other mechanisms that can be used to make money. There's management that can be used to make money. There's media that can be used to make money. And then at the top, there's your mind that can be used to make money. So if I get off of using my muscles and I graduate past using my management skills, and I can ascend past using media, I can get to using my mind to make money. Where now I sit in a boardroom, maybe with Eddie, maybe with Ralph, maybe with a few other people, we have a conversation, and at the end of that conversation, we all receive compensation. What does that look like? Well, that just looks like using the DAX system. We've delegated enough, we've automated enough, we've communicated enough, we've systemized enough. So now our mind literally makes us money because we've set that up. You see, I'm in the process right now of scheduling what's like one of our VIP days. Our VIP days are £220,000 for 8 hours, right? And I don't like calling it 8 hours because there's a little bit more to it than that. What we do in a VIP day is I spend one whole day focused on one person's business throughout that day. After that, the person then gets 12 months inside of the round table for us to basically make sure they're executing the stuff that I show them in that one day. In that one day, it's basically 4 hours in the morning looking at certain things in their business. We're basically using the sourcing blueprint as the structure and the model. So we look at their marketing, we look at the managing, Then we have a lunch. Then at the end of the day, we have another 4 hours. We look at their measuring, we look at their maturing system. So we're looking deep dive into all 4 systems that a person's business has, right? Typically, if someone's going to join a VIP day, we say to them that their business needs to already have them financially free, right? They might be on 20K a month, they might be on 10K a month, whatever, but they have to be financially free. Why? Because what we do with them is we show them a blueprint of how they make 2.2 million every single year. So that's why it's 220,000, because it's a 2.2 million pound blueprint, right? Now, people that are doing we got one that we're scheduling or we're working on coming up. Now, in the VIP day, a lot of the time what we do is we do an activity in the day, me and that specific business owner. So that might be we go to a shooting range, we're shooting for the day. Usually jiu-jitsu, we're doing a jiu-jitsu lesson together. And that lesson or whatever the recreational activity we do throughout the day is used to showcase a lot of the skill set of what I'm talking about throughout the 4 components of the marketing, the managing, the measuring, the maturing. Now, the reason I bring that up is there's different ways people join that. Some people say, hey, Samuel, you know what? I want the VIP day. I want to put 220,000 down, boom. Some people say, Samuel, you know what? I want the VIP day, but I'm not in that position yet. So how do I get in now? Because I see it's the room I want to be in. It's the room I want to close the door in, but I don't see how I can pay 220. So one of the ways, one of the models we use is we do a payment of £100,000 and then the person has an equity share where 20% of their business over the next 12 months, they pay to us. So we're basically partnering together. Now someone might say, Samuel, why would you take 20% of someone's business for 12 months instead of your other £120,000? I'll tell you why. Because if you make 2.2 million, which is the blueprint I'm giving you, you just ask yourself what's 20% of that. 20% of that is more than the £120,000. So I'm basically, in simple terms, putting my money where my mouth is. I'm basically saying, I know this is going to work. I know how well this is going to work. So much so that I'm willing for you to pay me in the future 20%, which will be more than paying me now the extra £120,000. Now, why am I sharing this with you, Atanas? Because I want you to understand this is moving up from my muscles making me money. This is moving up from my management skills making me money. This is moving up from media making me money to my mind making me money. That 8-hour VIP day is a mastermind day. That's what it is. It's a mastermind day. It's us masterminding on the 4 most important essential components of any business. Your marketing, your managing, your measuring, and your maturing systems. That's it. So it's the same thing. If you've implemented the DAX system enough, the delegation enough, the automation enough, the communication enough, the systemization enough, guess what happens? You come in and your mind starts making you money. Imagine having a board meeting with Ralph, with Eddie, with Mihal, like the 4 or 5 of you just around the table, and maybe your head of operations at that table. And you have an in-depth 1 hour, 2 hours. It might even be a 4-hour meeting. Once a week, once a month, whatever it is, whatever the cadence you create for the life you desire is. And you leave that meeting and the rest of the week, you're in a shooting range. The rest of the week, you're in jiu-jitsu classes. The rest of the week, you're in Muay Thai classes. The rest of the week, you're with your wife and children. You're at home. You're doing whatever you want. And then next week, it's a 30-minute check-in. Hey, head of operations, how are we doing? How are we doing with this? Okay, cool. Everything with Ralph is good. How are we doing with this? Okay, everything with Eddie's good. How are we doing with this? Okay, everything with Mehal's good. All right, cool. Good. We're good. I'll speak to you next week on the catch-up call. If there's anything urgent, message me. Now, there's Tim. I put the plaques in front of the book, so right now we can't see them. But Tim Ferriss's book, The 4 Hours Work Week, like some people think that's a myth. It's not a myth. It's just whether you want to develop the belief to understand that I can use my muscles or I can use leverage. Muscles only work so much. Archimedes said it. If you give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum strong enough, I can move the whole world. I don't need to move the whole world. Samuel, I can win, okay? Archimedes said, you give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum strong enough and I'll move the whole world. Samuel, I can win says, I don't even need to move the whole world. So I don't need a lever as long as Archimedes. I don't need a fulcrum as strong as Archimedes. And I can move my whole world. This is possible. The round table, our VIP day, next level, the 5-day cash flow creation week, each of these just serve to be the lever and the fulcrum. so people can start moving their worlds. So I want you to think about that when you answer that question for yourself. What do you not want to go back to? Like, just think about that, Atanas. Like, why is it that now you think the way you think? I'll tell you why. Because now you've been exposed to how leverage can help your business way better. And if you have, or if you can execute on some of the things we've already spoken about and you've already started to work on or dipped your toe into, and if you can get those things over the line, like getting 1 or 2 people on board, doing work, like I get it. The old mentality, but that's paying more out. The new mentality, incremental partnerships create exponential results. If I can get 2, 3 people, one focus on getting my rooms let all of the time, another person focus on maybe helping me source the opportunities. That's the front end and the back end of income generation. Again, going back to our first session, what are your profit centers? That's the front end and the back end of income generation, literally being automated in your business. Everything can change.
Yeah, thank you so much, Samuel. I think you summarized it great. And
You're welcome.
it really is, pushing my pushing the buttons in my mind,
What are you
in an
thinking?
overdrive.
Let's go with that. What are you thinking? When you say pushing the buttons in your mind, what are you thinking? Excuse me, I'm just gonna go get a drink.
I mean, I'm just thinking it's possible because again, the things I've learned that I've applied so far have worked. So that means that everything else also works,
That's powerful.
So that's why I'm glad because when you've tried and tested something, it's easier to believe for the rest. So
Yep.
if what we achieved so far has been possible, then the rest is also possible. If I've reached thus far, then why not be possible, to grow to the 1 million and to offset, many of these elements where, you have more free time and stuff like this.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
Yes. And I think, like you said, you have to believe it first for it to become
100%.
possibility. Because interestingly, one of the kind of the studies which the Holy Spirit has given me and it's been my meditation is, when in Mark chapter 9, when Jesus says all things are possible to him that believes. So if you believe, it becomes possible, but possible doesn't mean it's going to be your reality. So when you believe it in your heart, it becomes possible to you. That means it's achievable, but then it's the doing part that makes it your reality. Is the action of faith that makes the possible become your reality. So it's amazing. But if without believing it's possible, what are you going to do? It's not going to be possible. But being possible, it enables you to go and do it. Just like with the whole room situation and stuff, I had to kind of work and sharpen my thinking and my believing, which then enables me to execute and make the impossible or the seemingly impossible possible and to produce the results. So yeah, these are the kind of thoughts going through my mind.
Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff, champion. Powerful stuff. All right, let's go into the homework and the recommended reading. We'll then touch on the issue that you mentioned as quick as we can, and then we'll go into key takeaways. Homework, okay? As you're coming to the end of the 12 months, the question is what truly matters, okay? So here's 3 questions, which are kind of your homework to consider, think about, flesh out. First one, what truly matters? Second one, what have you found to be of true value? Okay. And then thirdly, what are you committed to not go back to? Okay. So what truly matters? What have you found to be of true value? And what are you committed to not go back to? That's your homework, those 3 questions. Recommended reading, I think I've got all of these here. 3 books. Well, you can get them all on audio, I think. I'll share this with you as well. This was a revelation I got yesterday. I wrote it in the book, so I might as well share it. First one, Stealing from God, written by Frank Turek. Stealing from God, written by Frank Turek. Okay, that's the first reading for this month. There's 3 books, but they're all on similar topics, which is why I've given you 3 today. The second one is right here. The Oracle, which I might have shared before. If I haven't, I'm guaranteeing I'm sharing it now. The Oracle. This is Rabbi Jonathan Kahn. Okay, The Oracle by Rabbi Jonathan Kahn. Kahn spelled Cahn. Okay, that's the second one. And the third one is Attributes of God. Attributes of God. That one I've got audio, I think. That's written by A.W. Pink. A.W. Pink. Alpha W Whiskey W Pink. A.W. Pink. Those three recommended reading for this month, just to go deeper on how messy middles make miracles. Let's go. All right, so let's jump into what you wanted to discuss. At the start, you mentioned about managing the money. Prior to that, in Voxer, you mentioned the scripting, how to put together kind of like the script. What do you say? You mentioned that obviously sometimes you feel like you're veering off topic when you are creating content. So there was that around the ads and putting that stuff together, what my thoughts were. And then also you had the question around lead gen or lead capture. Which one should you do, the private form or the recreated form, or should you have them going somewhere for something else? So yeah, which one do you want to jump into? Let's do that, and then the rest will catch up on Voxer.
I think let's do the money one, because this one is more pressing, because I'm speaking to Michael when the guys, they're quite keen, they can do everything quickly, but I said, look, at the moment I have to deal with the chaos of filling rooms, so let's put this whole other thing on hold till the end of the month, because again, this is kind of the back end of the what is it called, the cash flow center, like you said it. So I need to really focus to make it happen, because I'm working in with hands, with mind, with heart to get them done. So
cool. So
I think this one can wait.
Cool. So would you summarize the question as, and this is me just reflecting on what we've shared at the beginning of the session, how, with your current business size and systems, do you manage your resources, in specifically in terms of money, in order to navigate through the predicament you shared, i.e., multiple empty rooms, and more importantly, like you mentioned, all these additional other expenses that are coming up at the same time, in order to move forward? Is that the question, or is there something more nuanced to add before we jump into it?
So how do I formulate this question? So okay, looking at the money I have available now, is okay. Go. Sorry.
That's okay. You're good.
So I have, let's say, a credit card which has already, I think I have 6K on it, so I can probably cash transfer 5.
Okay.
So I have, let's say, 5K from credit cards, because I've used 1K already that I need to replenish anyway. It's 7, out of which I can pull 6, but at the moment it's 6, so I can get 5. So let's have this 5. I have my own investment pot, which is where I recycle all the money that go and come into deals, and all the profits. It's like the master lump, which is about 5. And then I have my own 3K of savings, which is the money I use to live, and I replenish them every month. So this is my own personal expenses. And then it's like the emergency fund. And then I have 6.5K of my mom's money, which is a loan which she gave me back before Staykeeper sunk, which is 8K. So I've been rebuilding it to get to 8. So it's at 6.5. So I'm just putting bits and pieces here and there. So I understand that, the resources are finite, and I did the kind of the profit and loss for the business for this month, and it will be good. We'll be in plus, and plus working hard this month. We shouldn't feel a burn next month. But then, we have new deals coming, and I think one of them is fully rented, so it will probably be about 4K, which is 2K each. But then the other one, which is being negotiated, it's a 6-bedroom that needs furnishing. So that one will probably be about 8K, which is 4K each. So that is like probably at least 6K just going out like this. So that means that these pots are now going to start feeling the squeeze. And again, I've put a bit of a kind of constraint, I guess, on myself. I don't want to get personal loan, because I kind of earlier in the year, was it earlier or was it I think it was end of last year, I was able to repay that 25K which I had by pulling another one in my mom's name back home because the interest was half. And I think even from the bounce back loan and stay keepers and personal loan, I still have this PTSD feeling where I just don't want to go into it again. And I've been offered some business loans, but the interest rates are ridiculous. So I kind of turned them down. Plus, it's not for the amount of money I required anyway. So I really need to make the money I have stretch and be utilized so that it produces the result, because I don't want to say, look, I'm not keen to do these two deals. I'm just going to wait it out, because I also see that there is a momentum which is being formed, and, you know, it's not the right key to press in the spirit to say, I'm going to wait it out.
No, it's powerful. That's powerful. All right, great question. So there's two thoughts that come to my mind, but I know ultimately the second thought is the most important one. But I'll say the first one. The first one is, like, we all know being entrepreneurs means we have to become very good at solving other people's problems. And sometimes part of that is us experiencing what other people would call a problem. So us being, I'll use the language you used, squeezed financially, might not be something we talk about and glorify. Hey guys, I was squeezed last month. I had nothing. I literally got down to £32. I didn't know how I was going to eat dinner. But guess what? I'm an entrepreneur. This is what we do. And before the end of the month, I had over £80,000 come in. Like, we don't do that. Like, we don't do that. But that's how we live sometimes. Like, if I can keep it real, Atanas. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I remember November of 2024, Robbie and I did over, I think we did 111,000 in that month. But thank God that months don't start on the 1st and end on the 1st. Because on the 1st of November of 2024, we were nowhere near 111,000 pounds. But again, going back to what I shared today, that is the power of knowing that chaos follows creation. When you see chaos, you don't commit suicide, because you understand it's part of the process. You understand that as long as we invest in our conversion, in the inspiration that leads to the transformation that we need, then we don't need to commit suicide when we see the chaos, because the creation will have the conversion. We will get to that point of creation. So the first thing I will say to you is, understand that being an entrepreneur, solving other people's problems, sometimes means we put ourselves in what looks like a problem. And the reason we're able to do that, Atanas, is because of the ingredient you spoke about, the ingredient of faith. Now, what is the ingredient of faith? And when I say the ingredient of faith, what do I mean specifically? So you understand what I'm talking about. When I say the ingredient of faith, and what I mean specifically is believing what we spoke about today, that being in a messy middle means I'm in a perfect position for a miracle to happen. So I'm okay in the 1st of November 2024 to invest in a way I've never invested before, believing in faith that in less than 30 days I can have a breakthrough month and generate way more revenue that month than I've generated any of the other months in that year. Like, that's what I mean when I use the language. Because we're so good at helping other people solve their problems, sometimes we're putting ourselves in what perceivably looks like a problem in order to move forward. So there's that. That's the first thing I wanted to share. So I guess what I'm saying to you is, with £6,500 that you're holding for your mum, with £3,000 being held in emergency, with £5,000 being held on credit, with an additional £5,000 of investment turnover revenue, we are talking about very quickly £19,500, close to £20,000. The point I'm making is, like, if we go back to the training of today and we go back to what I said about the widow in 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 7, the first thing, these messy middles make miracles because they provide, the first one, meaning within mayhem. Now, it might seem like there's mayhem, but all of the expenses you just described to me, Atanas, are not equal to the amount of money you've got. You've got more money than you have mess right now. So that tells me already you're not really even in a mess. But Let's go deeper, right? When I spoke about the widow and I said meaning within mayhem, I said the widow said she had creditors calling, but I asked what truly matters? What truly matters? Like, does it matter that you feel like, oh, I've got 60,000 in the bank, 40 here, 20 there? Like, does that, like the feeling that the world wants you to feel like you have, so you feel comfortable, confident, and secure, is not a feeling that God has ever said you should have in order for you to feel comfortable, confident, and secure. I don't need to feel like I've got tons and tons of money to be able to have faith to make tons and tons of money. I don't even need to feel like I've made tons and tons of money. Like you said something earlier, which was powerful. You said, oh, because I've been in the round table and I've witnessed the transformation of my business, it should be easier for me to have faith to believe that the rest of the things I've learned in the round table can create transformation in my business. Well, I'm going to tell you something. You are totally right. It should be easier, but guess what? It doesn't matter whether it's easier or not. I can guarantee you that there is nothing we teach in the round table that will not create transformation. How do you know that, Samuel? Because I transformation stack this training. And the reason I transformation stack this training is so if someone comes in at month 4, they can still receive transformation in their business. And every single person who spends 12 months with us will, without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, experience some level of transformation where they will say to themselves, this stuff really works. I don't know how it works, but it works. He said, do this. I did this. I saw this result. It works. He told me, focus on my profit centers. I focused on my profit centers. And I don't really feel like I even did anything other than just got clear on what my profit centers were. But guess what? My profit centers are now profiting more. He told me incremental partnerships make exponential results. Guess what I did? I added a new partnership. And guess what? Now I'm looking at some real new exponential results. Like, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I want you to understand, Atanas, that it's not about how you feel. It's not about how the widow felt when her coach, Elisha, said to her, go and borrow. It's not about how she felt. It's about what really mattered. What really mattered was she was about to solve a problem she had never, ever thought she could solve in her life. And she solved it in a way that she would never, ever have to worry about it again for the rest of her life. So this is not me saying to you, go borrow money. This is not me saying that. It's just saying to you, where you're at right now, you're good. Like, you are literally good. Like, just don't feel like you need to feel like you've got 10, 25, 4, 1K in the bank to feel like you're less or more of a human being. Like, if you do what I elusively alluded to earlier and put all 19,500 into stuff, and you know, because we cover this in the 5-day cash flow creation week, like, you know, the way things have been put in place, we will be ROIing on this revenue in 6 months, 4 months, 3 months, 2 months, 1 month. Then go full for multiply. Because the command was multiply, replenish, and subdue. The command was not save, feel comfortable, and feel confident. This is the difference. And what you will find is, as I found, and as many of the entrepreneurs in the roundtable and other programs that we do find, the more you go forth and multiply, the more you go forth and replenish, the more you go forth and subdue, the better you get at doing it. And then it goes back to what you shared earlier, and then it becomes that perpetual journey where you're saying to yourself, no, I can do this at a bigger level. I can do this at a higher level. I can do this at a stronger level. And the joy of doing this at a bigger level, higher level, and stronger level is the residue becomes bigger. Samuel, what do you mean the residue becomes bigger? Well, right now, if you go all in, Atanas, you might be left with £400, £500 and thinking, how can I be living with just £400 in my bank? Like, am I crazy? Okay. But what happens when it's not £19,500, but it's £1.95 million? And you go all in and you're left with £400,000. Because that mathematically is the equivalent of the £500 that I just gave as the example with 19,500. What happens then? Well, nothing happens. The only difference is what I just said. The residue is bigger. So how do you feel when you go all in with 1.9 and you're left with 500,000? Well, if you have the same mind you have right now, you feel really, really good. Because I got £500,000. Right? But if you've got the respective mind that we're trying to place in your heart now, you feel like this is just what we do. This is just what we do. We go all in because that's what God's called us to do. Go all in. We go all in on developing ourselves. We go all in on becoming more. So we can go all in on doing more. So we can go all in on having more. As Dr. Myron Golden once said to me, when people ask the question, how smart do you want your children to be? Nobody says, I just want my child to be smart enough to be able to pass an exam. Nobody says that. When people ask the question, how healthy do you want to be? Nobody answers the question, I just want to be healthy enough to get to my 40th birthday. Nobody answers that. So why is money the only area in people's lives, specifically a lot of believers' life, where when we ask how intelligent you want to be as intelligent as possible. When we ask how healthy you want to be as healthy as possible. But when we ask how wealthy you want to be, you just want to be wealthy enough to get by. And it was Dr. Myron Golden, when he shared that with me, that helped me realize, you know what? We live in a crazy world. And in order to really utilize this world the way we're supposed to utilize this world, guess what we're supposed to do? We're supposed to go all in. Go all in. You're mentioning, £19,500 of resource. You're mentioning, this deal here, 4,000, this deal here, 6,000. I get it, right? I don't know what your thoughts are about the renewal of the roundtable, but that's going to be a price tag as well. So if that's something of interest to you, that's going to be another expense. You're going to have to figure out, like, what am I going to do if I'm going to get back into this room? So you have to tell me about that, because like I said, I don't know your thoughts on that. But the same thing is, like, if the thoughts are, oh no, I'm going to end up with nothing, you have to start to understand where the real value is. The real value, Atanas, in you doing your next deal is not in the money. Like, we've already discussed this over the year, but the real value is not in the money. The Bible told us better than I could say it. It said a good name is better to be chosen than silver and gold. This is why there's companies that are investing. Like in 2022 November, we did the property proof training, and one of my students spoke and said, listen, Samuel, I paid you £7,000 to get into a coaching program that you were running. At the time, it was my last £7,000. I never knew that. When the person paid the £7,000, I never knew it was their last £7,000. I never knew. If I knew, I probably would have told them, don't do it. Don't do it. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do this. But guess what? It doesn't surprise me that that's the very same person that has cleared over £87,000 per month in revenue now. It doesn't surprise me. Why? Because that person understood the same thing I'm trying to share with you now, Atanas. As an entrepreneur, we get good at solving other people's problems. And sometimes the way we solve people's problems is by making it look like we're putting ourselves in a problem. But we're not doing that. We're actually just following the principle that God showed us. We know what goes up must come down. So in order for my revenue to go up, I know it must first come down. It's called investing. That's what it is. It's called investing. And when she invested £7,000 to get into the room and used her last money that her and her husband agreed, you know what? Invest in him. He's worth it. They're not complaining. They didn't complain when they paid £35,000 to be in the round table. They didn't complain because they understood how many times they had got results from what we had done from the first time. So I'm saying the same thing to you, Atanas. Like, don't look at these deals as, oh, this is 7,000. Oh, this is 8,000. Oh, this is 6,000. Oh, this is 50,000. Like, just don't look at it like that. Look at it as is the value? Like, what's the value? Poor people ask, how much does it cost? Wealthy people, we think about how much value it brings. It's two different mindsets. And instead of thinking, how much does it cost? Think about how much value it brings. If a house is going to bring you an additional 50, 60,000 pounds in revenue over the next 12 months, is it worth investing £6,000 right now? The answer to that is easy. How do you manage the money? By turning the money into more money. That's the easy question. Easy answer to the easy question. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
You're all good. You're all good. You need to
Yeah, that
yeah, go on.
that was very funny answer. It was a big blessing, though. It really made me think because that's what I've been thinking. Like, oh my God, if I burn all this cash, and then how am I even gonna go for more coaching? Like, where do we go from there? But you kind of summarized it very well. It's amazing. Sometimes, like you said, utilizing resources in plain sight, because I've actually not done the calculation. If I assemble in everything in one go, how much is it? How much can it last? So I think I kind of allowed the past experiences to kind of get a kind of the best of me.
Mhm,
Remember what happened remember what happened last time. Remember 2023.
mhm.
But yeah, you're right. Especially if the projects are good and make sense, and we've been testing and demand and everything is very high, then it's a no-brainer. Like you said, it's called investing.
And you've got the thing with this Atanas as well. You've got a model that works. Samuel, what do you mean? Well, you're not doing your first rent to rent. You're not doing your second rent to rent. You're not doing your
Yeah.
third rent to rent. You've done so many rent to rents that you now, if you're taking note, like I said, the messy middle makes miracles. Why? Because we're able to get a model from the mistakes. So if you're taking note of the mistakes that have been made, if you're taking note of the model that you're creating, again, on our 5-day cash flow creation week, what do we do on day 5 where we say cash flow creation success? Here's your ideal cash flow deal. How can we create an ideal cash flow deal? Because we've looked at what all the mistakes being made over the week. So what I'm saying to you is, now that you've got a portfolio of over 10, you should know, okay, if I'm going to take a loan of 25,000, if I'm going to take a loan of 50,000, if I'm going to take a loan of 100,000, and the interest rate is 4%, 5%, 9%, 10%, does it make sense for me to do that? Well, I know because I'm experienced enough in rent to rent as the model to know. It's the same as coaching. Like, this is why I said to you what I said a moment ago when I said, you said, because I know some of this stuff works, it should be easier for me to know the rest works. Well, guess what? In 2 Kings 4, verse 1 to 7, which we read, the widow didn't know that any of this stuff was going to work before she went to borrow. She just believed the coach. When Elisha said, yo, this is going to work, go borrow. Nobody spoke about the interest rate. Do you know why? Because it must have not mattered. This is what people don't realize. You think a whole bunch of people just said, yeah, go take my jar, take my jar, take my jar, take my jar. And nobody said, oh, I want it back by this time. Nobody had any terms and conditions. I need it back by this time, and when you bring it back, it needs to come with this. Like, come on. No, the terms and conditions were not spoke about. Why? Because the terms and conditions meant nothing. Because what meant more was the thing worth more than the silver and gold, the good name. The fact that we are building something here, which is a reputation. We're building here caliber. We're putting ourselves in rooms with other multi-millionaires. This is what's of value. Not just, oh yeah, I'm going to make more money. Oh yeah, I'm just going to hit my £1 million target. Like, there's so many more values that are more valuable than the money. This is why we invest. So I would encourage you, Atanas, like, yes, like you said, from a practical perspective, sit down, actually count the cost. The Bible tells us to do that. But at the same time, please understand that you're investing. You're investing. You're playing a game. Like you said, money is like a game. You're playing a game, and the game is called investing. It's not saving. You can start saving if you want. You can keep saving if you want. That's fine. But if you're investing, you're gonna be doing multiply, replenish, subdue. Excuse me. If you're saving, I don't know what you're doing because I haven't seen that in scripture. But if you're investing, you're doing multiply, replenish, subdue. That's why you have to replenish, because you're multiplying. That's why you have to subdue, because you're replenishing. It's a system that works together. So my encouragement to you is go forth and multiply. Same thing Jesus said to the disciples. Go forth and multiply. Go forth and multiply. Go forth and multiply. If you want us to look into the renewal on the round table, because you've mentioned it, message me in Voxer, just let me know, and I'll get the team to look into what they can do for you in terms of going forward. But when it comes to these deals, Atanas, if something's gonna make you 60,000 in the next 12 months, should you invest £6,000? It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. We all know that. Like, why are we talking about this? Kind of no-brainer. You know, don't feel like, oh, I'm stretched. Like, you're supposed to be stretched. Why? Because you weren't born a multi-millionaire. Like, if you were born a multi-millionaire, let's use Donald Trump as an example. Like, Donald Trump in the 80s and the early 90s was stretched. He was gonna go bankrupt. So what's Samuel saying? It don't matter how you were born. If you're really playing this game, you're gonna feel stretched at times. Like I said in the example, like, as entrepreneurs, we don't tell the story. Hey guys, you know, I had 30 something pound in my account, but before the end of the month, I hit 80K. We don't tell that story, but that's the story for most people. The numbers might not be the same. The numbers may have been changed to protect the innocent, but the reality is the story is the same. The story is the same. I needed these two rent-to-rents to pay their rent. If they didn't pay their rent, I was gonna go in the red. And then, oh, they both paid. Like, come on, man. It's like, that's business. If we want to be employees, oh, yo, it's a different story. Let's just go back to one man writing a check for us, £2,417.38, and the government giving us a slap, taking what they want before we get the rest. If we want to go back to that, we could go back to that. But we asked the question earlier in today's session, and hopefully that's not even coming into anyone's mind. What will you not go back to? I know what I'm not going back to. I know what I'm not going back to. I can say that 100 times. I know what I'm not going back to. So I hope that's not even part of our thinking in terms of what we're not going back to. But I want you to understand that is a different game. That's not the game that I'm playing. That's not the game I'm training people on. Because if you want to go back to that game, then you'll be safe. You'll have your 2,000 coming in on the 30th or the 28th or the last Friday, however the company runs their thing. But you'll also be capped. You'll even be capped lower than the guys using sweat equity. Because the guys using sweat equity might do 60,000 in a year, might do 120,000 in a year, and be like, yo, I've never seen this much money in a year in my life before. And that's with sweat equity. So sweat equity is even going to break you past the JOB, the just over broke, when you jump out of bed and get on the journey of the broke. But you got to make that decision. You got to make that decision.
Yeah, you're right. No, that's very, very insightful. Thank you, Samuel. It's just, I think that's why it's very helpful, because when you're in the mix and different things are happening, sometimes the soup around your mind just becomes very, very thick. So you're trying to swim to it all,
I hear you.
And it's true. Because again, why, like you said, all in is better. And it's funny because Pastor Chris said something that you've said before as well in a different way. He said, we found out that slow and steady doesn't work. And he doesn't win the race.
No one wins a race slow and steady,
So,
man. It's impossible.
Yeah, so the same like you said. Yeah, what is the problem is like build well slow is an issue. And I mean, if you're going to remain small, it's a problem, because remember when I was just starting, there is one English guy in my gym. I think he's a mortgage broker, probably still is. So his one is, I save money, I buy one, buy to let. And he's probably around my age. So then he even got like a weekend job delivering pizza and stuff to save more, to be able to save more money, to buy more houses in Liverpool. And then he was like, bro, from those 1-2 rents, you're not making much. I would rather just go and do my second job and make the money, He's like, I would rather go and work the delivery and make the same money, and I'm buying property and stuff. But looking back at it now, see, things are different, because when you grow and you build a momentum, the conversation changes.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Powerful.
So,
Powerful.
those are my thoughts. But
Powerful
thank you, Samuel. I've written it down. I'll read it and I'll just go with it.
You're most welcome, champ. You're most welcome. Before we wrap up, let's take a key takeaway. We've done the homework, we've done the reading, we've done the training, and we've covered the last thing on money. So, yes, key takeaways, champ. Over to you before we wrap up.
My key takeaway from the last question, because we covered for the lesson, right? But for the last question, my key takeaway is where you said that the system behind investing is multiply, replenish, and subdue. So you have to use the resources to multiply, then in result you replenish, and then there will be obviously
Challenges you have to subdue.
things happening that you need to subdue. And that's the essence of dominion, because let them have dominion is contains all these things. And that's been kind of even my mindset. I look, all this, I need to now subdue it and quench all these fires and issues that are happening so that we can continue to move on. So that it summarizes, because it gives me the formula that is, contains the technology of what and how to do it.
That's powerful. That's super powerful. That's super powerful. That's training right there. All right, Atanas.
Yeah.
Thank you ever so much, champion. Pray you got tons of value. Looking forward to seeing you higher and higher, not just aspire. Continue to transform beyond what people think is the norm. My brother, please have a fantastic day. Look forward to catching up. Good day, God bless. And always remember, small keys. Sorry, I muted you by accident. There you go.
No, just saying thank you so much, and especially for the time you spent, because you're way beyond the clock, and I'm very grateful for taking the extra time to cover this.
You're most welcome.
This session was so loaded, man. It's like amazing.
You're welcome, champ. You're welcome. It's funny because obviously this is the same session where I shared, like, basically, since Reginald graduated, I'm just mindful that there's certain things I know you need to get. And then I'm equally mindful that we have certain time. So
yeah,
sometimes I know what I'm going to teach, but I'm like, I have to jam pack this because I need you to have everything to succeed. I need and again, I don't usually share with any of the delegates things that are kind of like under the cover. But today I shared with you, like, I'm mindful that because you didn't do the 5-day challenge before, because you didn't do the next level before, the mindset coming in might not have been the same. Like it's easy to say, oh, look, Atanas, we're going to give you a scholarship, come on this program. We're charging people 55,000 to be a part of this program, but, just come in. Like, there is a difference when people part with money to how they engage. And that's not a good thing, bad thing. It's just a fact. So I have to also bear that in mind to make sure that, yes, I know this is going to be of value for you, but I want it to be of the highest value for you, bearing in mind the fact that you didn't part with 55,000 to be in the room.
Yeah.
So that you can be in a place where you're like, no, you know what? Like, I know what to do. I not only know what to do to change my situation, but I know how to put myself in the place I want to be going forward. So all of those things I encompass. So this is the reason why I'm just making sure that all of the things we cover as we roll out are basically exactly what you need. And I get the opportunity to do that as well because currently you're the only person in the room. So that's even better for me, So when we have our next cohort coming on board, it will be harder for me to do that. So yeah, let's keep it cracking.
Yeah, thank you so much, Samuel.
Champion, many blessings. Always remember, small keys, open big doors.
Please open big doors.
Yes, sir. I'll catch you on the next one. Good day. God bless.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a great day, champ.